And Councilman Hicks, would you do the honor of the invocation, please?
Thank you, Lord Jesus, for this day. I lift up in prayer Officer Deputy Robert Woodard, former police officer here in Cibolo, along with his wife Veronica, her son Adam. As Robert went to be with you, Lord, I pray for our council that we look forward to doing the right things for all of Cibolo and its decisions made here tonight. I ask protection over all first responders and our men and women who serve our military. In these things I pray, amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So, I'm going to go get the proclamation. Okay, we have a proclamation to honor former Cibolo Mayor Sam Bowder, who went home to the Lord and Jesus earlier this year. And Sam's family is here tonight. And so I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation for Sam. The office of the Mayor of the City of Cibolo, Texas, proclamation in recognition and honor of the life of Sam Bowder. Whereas Sam Bowder was born in Austin, Texas on December 20th, 1942. And whereas Sam Bowder served as the mayor of the mayor of the city of Cibolo for 14 years, from 1987 until 2001. And whereas the city of Cibolo was a general law city at that time, making Mr. Bowder responsible for managing the city and all of its departments. And whereas, while serving as the mayor of the city of Cibolo, Sam Bowder saw the home building and the school enrollment climb, which turned out to be the beginning of the explosive growth of this area. And whereas, Sam Bowder has always been a friend to the city of Cibolo. Before, during, and after his term, Sam was there for support and guidance, as well as personal friendship for citizens throughout the community, which helped foster some of the relationships we have even today. And whereas, Sam Bowder was always a forward thinker. He helped with the simplest of tasks, such as updating filing systems, and played a key role in things like the acquisition of the property, the city of Cibolo City Hall, and where its amenities currently sit. Cibolo residents have much to thank Sam for. And whereas, Sam Bowder was an avid nature lover and would enjoy watching local wildlife every chance he had. And whereas, Mr. Bowder also served as the ambassador committee for the San Antonio Livestock Show and Rodeo for over 30 years. And whereas, Samuel Bowder was father to 2 daughters and papaw to 2 grandchildren who we love dearly. And now, therefore, I, Mark Allen, Mayor of Cibolo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council and residents, wish to honor Sam Bowder and thank him for his service to our community. So if you would, please come on up and we'll present the proclamation for you. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Really appreciate you coming so we could honor your father. All right, next up is 6A. The City of Cibolo City Council will hold a public hearing to hear public testimony regarding a variance request from UDC 17L to reduce the 15-foot landscaping buffer requirement between Main Street and the proposed off-street parking or vehicular area for certain real property located at 508 North Main Street. Ms. Huerta.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This property is located at 508 North Main Street. It's proposed for non-residential use and is currently Zone C2. Per UDC Section 17.1 J3B, when an off-street parking or vehicular use area abuts a public right-of-way, except a public alley, a perimeter landscape area of at least 15 feet in depth shall be maintained before the abutting right-of-ways in the off-street parking or vehicular area. Minimum 3 feet landscaping buffer shrubs are to screen off all off-street parking spaces from the public right-of-way. The applicant is requesting to reduce the required 15 feet landscape buffer between the off-street parking use and the abutting public right-of-way to 5 feet. The city-owned right-of-way is approximately 22 feet wide and contains a drainage easement. The applicant has a total of 5.35 feet of space between the proposed parking and the public right-of-way. This property is located in the Old Town Mixed-Use Overlay, and the properties across Main Street are zoned SF6, with the remaining surrounding properties are zoned C2. Staff recommends approval to the landscape variance request as all other buffer requirements will be met, and additionally, the landscape plan will continue to demonstrate compliance with all other landscape requirements per UDC Article 17. The Planning and Zoning Commission also recommended approval by a 5-0 vote. And I know the applicant is here if you have any questions, or staff is willing to answer any other questions you may have.
Does anyone on council have any questions for staff or for the applicant? I hear nothing, so go ahead and close out the public hearing for 6A. It is.
What time did you start it?
Yeah, I started it at 6:37. It's now 6:41. Okay, next up, I'm going to open the public hearing for 6B. It is 6:41. The City of Cibolo City Council will hold a public hearing to hear public testimony regarding a rezoning of 5.2 acres, property ID 144902, located near the intersection of Dobie Boulevard and West Borgfield Road, from the current zoning of low-density single-family residential SF2 to community retail services C2. Ms. Horta.
Yes, this zoning request is specifically about the land use, not the future engineering of the land itself. And it should meet the criteria per UDC Article 4.3.1.5. The future engineering of the land will occur during the platting process, where the property's design is known. The applicant will seek to obtain a conditional use permit to allow for the development for a self-storage facility. Convenience storage is an allowable use with a conditional use permit in C2 and C3 districts, and by right in C4. The applicant is requesting a C2 to accommodate the lower intensity and residential uses surrounding the property. The proposed zoning is not consistent with the future land use map that shows the residential land use category, and buffer standards will be required per UDC Article 17.1L. Council has two options to either approve the rezoning located at Dobie Boulevard and Borgfell Road, or deny the rezoning of 5.2 acres. And the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval by a 4-1 vote.
Thank you very much. Okay, so before we have anyone speak on this item, I'd like to reopen the public hearing for 6A to see if anybody in the audience wants to speak on 6A. If so, raise your hand. Okay, hearing none, okay, so hearing none, we'll continue on with 6B. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come up to the podium to speak on 6B? The the applicant perhaps. Go ahead and come on up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Fritz Van Nest. We're here to talk about maybe bringing a self-storage facility to your city. Do you want me to go through the presentation of it now, or we go? I think we come back on July 11th to discuss it, and that's when you actually approve it. I think, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, we can wait till then for the presentation, but
Okay.
if anybody on council has any questions.
Yeah. If you have any
you-
questions, I'm here to answer it. But great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, come on up.
I have
Ian.
one question. I heard that you are against.
Yeah, please come to the microphone and then state your name.
I just heard that you are against the storage
Ma'am, you
unit.
need to state your name first.
Oh, Sylvia Schoenholz. And I live right next to wherever they want to rezone it. And the only thing I want to know is why would you be against it? I heard you are against the storage
The
unit?
self-storage. Well, I mean, it'll be voted on by council, so.
Because to me, what's going on Borgfeld Road is 1,000, the traffic increased 1,000 times. I can't even get to my mailbox without putting my hand in my life, because they are driving like not 35, that's for sure. And so a storage building next door, not an apartment building or something like that, or a business that's open every day, would not increase the traffic. By the time the apartment building across the street is, whatever that is done, and the stores on the corner from Cibolo Valley Road and Borgfeld Road, I mean, what are we supposed to do? I need a speed bump outside my driveway. There's 3 driveways, and they come around the corner. You don't see them come, but they're there all of a sudden. I can't get out of my driveway anymore.
Okay, so you are for the public storage?
I'm for the storage. I don't want nothing to happen right there, but a storage building would be better than another business of some kind, you know,
Sure.
that has everyday traffic.
All right, well,
That's
yeah,
all.
duly noted, so,
Can I go? Yeah.
In the city forum, and maybe there was an error made, but it seems that you signed that you were opposed.
I'm opposed. I'm against, no, I'm against what, actually, I was against rezoning, but I'm okay with the storage building. Because if it's rezoned, anything could come,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
That's, so rezoning, they're the storage company is asking for the property to be rezoned.
I know, but I'm okay with the storage building, not a business like, what's happening at the corner.
Right. So if we rezone, it sticks with the property.
The only thing I'm worried about, if they don't get to build their storage building and it goes to somebody else and it's rezoned, then they can build anything there.
Correct. Yes.
So that's what I'm worried about. So approve that.
Well,
okay, and so the way it'll work is, so after we had the public hearing tonight, and then it'll come
Okay.
back at the next council meeting for us to vote on.
I voted for you. You better do right.
That's right, thank you. And just so you know, I probably won't be voting on it because there's 7 council members, and so unless there's a tie, then I probably won't be voting on it. But yeah, it's a good deal.
You stopped me and you said, you can vote right here. And I said,
Yeah, yeah,
is shirts. I didn't know I could vote there too.
yeah. So we'll be voting on it at the next council meeting. So, thank you. All right. Anyone else have any comments on this item? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for 6B. It is 6:48. Peggy. All right. So we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for 6C. The City of Cibolo City Council will hold a public hearing to hear public testimony regarding the rezoning of 38.43 acres, property ID 69842, located at the northwest intersection of FM 1103 and Orth Avenue from the current zoning of neighborhood commercial C1 to multifamily MF1. Miss Lee and Miss Huerta, the time is now 6:49.
Okay, this property, it's a zone change request from C1 to MF1. The applicant is currently surrounded by a mixture of residential and commercial zoning districts with the Foxbrook subdivision directly to the south and C3 districts to the north and east. It's also adjacent to the Warbler Bird Sanctuary. Staff sent out notices. We have received 1 in favor and 5 in opposition. The Planning and Zoning Commission tabled this item upon request by the applicant. They tabled it for 90 days by a 5-0 vote. However, they could decide to bring it back. I think they may decide to bring it back in 60 days. Council has 2 options: to either approve the rezoning of 38.43 acres or to deny the rezoning with findings.
Thank you very much, Ms. Huerta. All right, so if you would like to speak on this item, please come on up to the podium and state your name.
My name is Todd Friesenhahn, and are we going to do another public hearing on this in 90 days, or is City Council going to vote on this today?
Okay,
No.
we won't be voting on it today, but the applicant did indicate that they would be coming back in either 60 to 90 days. However, they first have to go through P&Z before they can come here. And so we're probably looking at the August or September meeting for the P&Z for them to come back. Do you know if they'll have any more public hearings, or is this it?
There will, yes. It'll be reposted mailers as well as within the city at such time that the new date is established.
Okay, then I'll just wait till then. I think my sister wants to say something else. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Hi, I'm Tammy Friesenhahn-Smith. My parents, or my mom, actually owns the property that is directly behind this 38 acres.
West of it.
So she also has a 30, I'm sorry, say it
To the
again?
west of it, Tammy.
And west of it, whatever. I don't know the sense of direction here. So my concern about this particular development is twofold. Number one, it shows an entrance off of 1103 that appears to be maybe, according to this, 45-foot entrance. So you have no way to break or come off of 1103 even into a side lane to turn into the subdivision, right? Once 1103 is expanded to 5 lanes, you're gonna be crossing 5 lanes if you wanna take a left into the property. So there's really no adequate entrance for that. The other point is that I did not know this, but I found this out today because I actually got a copy of this today. So we have about 160 duplexes. So if you multiply that, you're looking at a good 320 units. Then multiply that by 2 cars, you have a good 600 cars that are gonna be pulling in there every day, right? So that's an additional 600 cars on 1103. And then furthermore, it was stated at the last public hearing, there is an emergency exit in the back of the property. So this, in the back of the property, if you look at the diagram, it cuts across a 30-foot road that we actually own. So concerns there for the fact that they want to cut across our road, right, our exit to 1103, and funnel all of that traffic through the neighboring neighborhood, Foxbrook, so people can hit the light to go out, right? So you have an additional 400, 500, 600 cars driving out of Foxbrook every day, which if I lived in Foxbrook, especially on the front end of Foxbrook, I'd have a problem with that many cars driving in front of my property. As far as the design of the project and everything, I mean, it looks to, it appears like, and they did this in good faith. decent housing, right? However, my other concern with that is giving the economic times right now, who's to say if somebody comes in there with all of these rental units and it goes belly up, right? I mean, I guess we could think that way about anything, but especially with something like this, when you have just nothing but pure rentals sitting in the city of Cibolo again. So that's basically it. Just my concerns.
All right. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
out to speak tonight. And so I'd encourage anyone else who is concerned about this to come on up and speak too. Even though we're not going to be taking action tonight, it's always a good practice to go ahead and tell us how you feel. A lot of times the P&Z commissioners pay attention to these city council meetings, so they may be listening or watching the video later. So if you're in the audience tonight and feel strongly about this agenda item, please come on up. Dave?
Hello, my name is David Rodriguez. I'm a resident in Turning Stone. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for listening. On this one here, you heard some of the things already today from the other issues. One is traffic. Obviously, we all know the traffic is demanding there on 1103. Right now, it's a mess. I know they're rebuilding it. But I remember from the city plan when we looked at these before, my only request is that as we do these, we have the plan, which is one thing, but it was brought up is that when you change it from commercial C1 to multifamily, worst case at 18 units per acre, you're looking at 630 plus potential units if the plan changes. So it isn't just an approval or change in the zoning for one. If you look at the worst case, you're looking at, two cars per unit, 95% commuter town like Cibolo is, you're looking at 1,260 cars, dumped on 1103, again, in a small access. It just makes it worse. It's not that I'm against housing, it's just, again, the location. And that's always something that has to be looked at. So there's a difference between the zoning legality piece and then also the impact on the community, the impact on the character and the livability of the community. And that's something I would ask all the council members to consider when you vote on making those changes. I know they talked about the transitional nature of the zoning for the area, but it's still buried right in the middle of a lot of communities and a lot of traffic just being dumped on 1103. And some of the other ones, the water drainage, I know it was an issue a couple years ago we talked about. I know with that particular community with Fox Run and Turning Stone, the water gets dumped into Turning Stone. And as of today, at least from my recollection, Turning Stone is still responsible for the drainage and the upkeep. And because of that, if you're going to add more, I know that some of that will come out in the plating, but when you change it in the zoning, those are just the big furball conditions that have to be addressed later on. So that's why changes, they really have to be thought through. And then the other standard things, water restrictions, that's always an issue. And then also energy, as we're in the heat wave right now, we had the freeze not too long ago, a year or two ago. As it keeps, yo-yoing back and forth, those are things that we have to also think about too as we switch from, low density, low demand to a higher density. Those are things that I know will come out later, but those changes do affect, again, the character of the community and the livability for the residents. So as this progresses, again, I ask each of you just to consider those changes as you go forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate your commentary tonight. Anyone else? Come on up. Feel free. Jeff?
Jeff McLaughlin. Unlike everybody else, I don't have any fancy stats to give you. I'm just going to paint a picture for you. So this proposal was the beginning of the end of where I moved from. I ran away from Oregon. I ran away from Portland. Decisions like this, when you start approving this, it's a domino effect and is the beginning of the end of a city. I know the decision's not on you right now, but don't be one of those people on council that votes to start the end of what is now Cibolo. Because once you start it, you can't go back. And if any of you don't know what Portland's like, Google it. It's not a utopia. Don't let Cibolo become the next Portland. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else? Come on up.
One more addition I wanted just to talk about. When you had mentioned the water drainage, obviously I grew up on the 60 acres that is just south of this, behind it, west, behind it. So, I grew up there my whole life. My dad actually built a tank, if you want to call it, bermed it up, and a drainage section in front of the property, because back then, this particular 38 acres was terraced when field crops were in there, right? So that we wouldn't have erosion of the land. So once you come in here and do something like this, I mean, everybody knows you're gonna have runoff on these streets. The one thing I do not see on this plat is any sort of pond or retainage pond where this water would even flow into. At least in Foxbrook, they put something to try to capture the water so it would not come down the town creek and eventually do what it did, you know, all those subdivisions did years ago, which was keep on flooding all the way down into Cibolo. So that's another concern here. You know, we have that tank back on our property, and that's what would fill it up. And that was after we bermed it to where it wouldn't flow and bust out the tank dam every time and just literally wash down Town Creek. So, you know, we tried to, in our own way, stop the erosion that eventually would come downhill and, quite frankly, end up here. So that's another concern about this, is that they have nothing in the plan of catching any of the water. So.
Thank you very much for that insight and history on the property. I always love it when we've got, you know, folks in the audience that come up and speak that they go back, you know, decades, that, you know, that have that history and can share that with city council and then eventually planning and zoning. So thank you very much.
Unless you've got a brother that decides to go drive through that tank and get stuck.
Right.
So.
I'm assuming that was you.
Did he do that? I have no clue what you're talking about.
I was with him. So.
All right. Anyone else in the audience tonight want to speak on 6C? All right. I take that as a no. I'm going to close the public hearing for 6C. And like I said earlier, this will come back in 60 to 90 days. So I'll make sure to remind everybody when it gets a little closer, so that way folks can come back out and have your voices heard. So thank you. It is now 7:01. I'm closing the public hearing for 6C. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing for 6D. It is 7:01. The City of Cibolo City Council will hold a public hearing to hear public testimony regarding an ordinance amending UDC Article 4 zoning regulations, Old Town Mixed Use Overlay District regulations, and adding a new section 47.4.4.4, non-conforming residential structures and lots, to establish special non-conforming structure grandfathering legislation custom tailored for the affected properties that are reclassified by ordinance 1395. Kelsey Lee.
I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but good evening, Mayor and Council. So before you tonight is the public hearing, and then later on is the actual consideration of an ordinance that's amending that very long section that you just read off. I know that the Council is very familiar with this process. You've been very engaged throughout this whole downtown rezoning, but if it's okay, I'll just do a little bit of an overview for anyone who may be in the audience wanting to speak or anyone watching at home on how we got here. So on January 10th of 2023, the Cibolo City Council did provide direction to staff to initiate a legislative rezone for properties that were residentially used within the Old Town District, but were zoned commercial and had been done so through a rezone process back in 2010. The City Council, through that process, did extend the opportunity for citizens of downtown to come forward and speak if they wanted to keep their commercial zoning or if they wanted to change that commercial zoning to a residential use at no cost to the owner. There was a lot of outreach done between January and March, and then on March 28th, the City Council passed Ordinance 1395, which rezoned 33 of those properties from C2, which is what we identify as that community retail service, to SF4, medium density residential. We acknowledged at that time that this rezoning was just going to be the first of a two-step process, acknowledging that rezoning those current properties to the city's residential zoning districts might not align perfectly with what the current standards are. And so a second ordinance would need to be passed to consider them as legal non-conforming structures and then permit the current uses to continue. That brings us to where we are today. We're considering that ordinance to allow that to happen. So the proposed ordinance amends UDC Article 4 and adds subsection 4.7.4.4.4, non-conforming residential structures and lots. The purpose of the section is to help preserve that residential character of certain lots within the Old Town Overlay District, and to also provide relief to some of those smaller residential lots that are typical of that Old Town District and that more historic nature. This subsection only applies to lots and residential structures within the Old Town District, which were part of those 33 rezoned properties. Should a structure on one of those properties be demolished for any reason, it can be rebuilt to the existing setbacks, or basically the existing floor plan as is today. That's provided within the table of the ordinance or any other legal instrument such as a survey. However, any new construction that expands that structure would need to comply with the minimum established setbacks for the SF4 district, and those are provided within your packet and within the ordinance. For public notice, we did publish this within the local newspaper, the Seguin Gazette, on May 21st, and also on the city website. Individual letters were sent by mail to property owners within the Old Town Mixed Use Overlay and those within 200 feet of the district, informing them of the proposed ordinance. There was a public hearing held at the June 14th Planning and Zoning Commission. At that time, no members of the public requested to speak on this item. I'm happy to answer any other questions, but that's just a little bit of background of where we are today.
Thank you, Kelsey. Yeah, the only question I had was about that it only pertains to the 33 properties that elected to flip their zoning from the hybrid to residential only, but you already answered that question in your presentation, so that's the only question I had. Does anyone else have any questions? City Council? Does anyone in the audience wish to get up and speak on this item? Okay. Come on up, Dave.
Yeah, my name's David Rodriguez. I just had a question. Like you said, demolished. Can they add on to it? And how about amendments to the existing structure? I didn't see that in the paperwork. I could have just missed it, but you only mentioned the replacement.
Yes, and if someone is looking at the paperwork, it's on the second page. So any new construction, so expanding on the current structure, is required to comply with the current setbacks of the SF4 zoning district. And the intent for that is to preserve these properties that are today and are non-conforming, but not to further allow additional non-conformance to the standards. Did that answer your question? Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey. Anyone else? Okay. It is 7:06. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing for 6D. All right, next up is agenda item number 7, citizens to be heard. This is the only time during the city council meeting that citizens can address the city council. It is the opportunity for visitors and guests to address the city council on any issue to include agenda items. All visitors wishing to speak must fill in the sign-in roster prior to the start of the meeting. The city council may not debate any non-agenda issue, nor may any action be taken on any non-agenda issue at this time. However, the city council may present any factual response to items brought up by citizens. Attorney General Opinion JC 0169. Limit of 3 minutes each. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body. Remarks may also be addressed to any individual member of the council, so long as the remarks are about about matters of local public concern and not disruptive to the meeting or threatening to the member or any attendee. Any person violating this policy may be requested to leave the meeting, but no person may be requested to leave or forced to leave the meeting because of the viewpoint expressed. This meeting is live streamed. If anyone would like to make comments on any matter regarding the city of Cibolo or an agenda item and have the item read at the meeting, please email pcimmix@cibolotx.gov and vchapman@cibolotx.gov or call 210-566-6111 before 5 p.m. on the dates of the meeting. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we have 5 speakers tonight. The first one is Caroline Herr. Come on up, Caroline. Welcome. When you get to the podium, please state your name and your address, please, Caroline.
Sorry, I'm Carol Herr at 232 Saddlehorn Way. I'm here on behalf of the Cibolo Senior Center. First, we'd like to thank you for your support for the seniors of our community. What I wanted to bring your attention with the opening of the Cibolo Senior Center came the moving of the Meals on Wheels program for the meal pickup to move from Schertz to Cibolo. And our location is now serving about 100 homebound seniors within Cibolo, Schertz, and Marion. And with this also came the responsibility of recruiting drivers. On May 1st, due to the increase in the number of meals being served, the number of routes were increased from 6 to 9. Being able to service more seniors in our community is a good thing, but it also created a drastic problem in having enough drivers to be able to deliver these meals. Almost every day we are short drivers. We're able to cover all the routes, but we're asking drivers to cover 2 routes, ask some of the seniors to drive, begging people who aren't scheduled to be working that day to come and help deliver the meals. Stephanie's even left, who's the center director, to go deliver some of these meals too. So we're asking you as the council to help spread the word that we're in need of these drivers. It only takes an hour or less depending on the route. The pickup is between 10:30 and 11 a.m. at the Cibolo Senior Center, and then you bring back the coolers once you've delivered the meals. We're only asking drivers to give 1 hour a month. If they're willing to give more, that's great. We have some that are committed to give of their time once a week or even a couple of times a week. And if any of you would like to drive, let me know and be willing to set you up and take you out on a route. If you know of anyone that would like to volunteer, they can contact the Comal County Senior Center Foundation, who's the one that is supporting Guadalupe County and Comal County and 2 other counties. Their website is volunteer@nb for New Braunfels senior.org, or you can call them at 830-629-4547 and ask for the Meals on Wheels office. Jeanette has posted our need on the city Facebook page. If you could please share it. I've also tagged those of you that I can find on Facebook onto our Cibolo Senior Program Facebook page. Peggy has given you all our flyer and applications. If you know of anybody that can help us out, or business that can post it, I have more if anybody needs them. So we thank you for your time, and we'll hope that we'll be able to support more of our seniors within our communities. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much, Carol. Hey, real quick before you leave, so this goes on every day, right? Or is
Monday
it
through Friday.
Monday through Friday? Okay, all right. Okay, so thank you.
And you're asking for volunteers, it says 1 hour a month?
Yep. If they want to give more than that, that's fine, but it takes an hour or less to deliver 1 route. It's about, depending on the route, it could be 5, 7, 8 houses. So which you could be delivering to multiple people within 1 house. So they provide a cooler for you to keep the food in, to keep it hot, the hot things hot and the cold things cold, and then you just bring the cooler back to the Cibolo Senior Center at the end of your route. Okay?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And yes, I did see that you tagged a lot of us on social media. And so
Thanks, Carol.
Yeah, we'll be sure to put some more posts out there and get the word out and have everybody send an email to the email address you gave us.
Yes,
So.
since they increased the routes, it has been a nightmare, to say the least. This past Monday, I was scrambling to find 5 drivers.
Right. Yeah, I came up there the other day, and I was there right about that same time between 10 and 11, where the drivers were getting loaded up with all their coolers. I remember thinking, wow, it's all these coolers. There's a ton of them out there. So luckily they had pretty good attendance that day. But I understand this is something that's needed, long term. So.
Yeah, it looked like a lot because they were picking up the coolers from the day before.
Yep. So thank you very much for organizing this and helping spread awareness.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have John. Is it?
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez. Thank you, John.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, just come on up and state your address.
Yes.
John.
Good evening, City Council. I'm John Rodriguez. I live at 617 Padova in Cibolo. I'm here tonight to ask the City Council to review the policies regarding the multi-event center and other parks for maximum availability for our Cibolo residents and citizens here. A couple days ago, I tried to use the multi-event center on an early morning, and I received conflicting guidance. I was told I was not able to use the field when there was nobody on it. I wanted to run a couple of 40-yard dashes for myself to track and improve my fitness. After being told I could use the field by a groundskeeper, I went to go set up, and then I was immediately then told to leave. I was told I needed to contact Miss Peggy Simics, the point of contact listed on the website, or I could walk to the trailer and ask her if I could use it. I spoke with Miss Peggy, and she told me I couldn't use the event center, and that all my calls I gave went to her spam, and I had to reserve a time online to use the event center. Ms. Peggy advised that I come here tonight and discuss these issues. So, one, I said parks should be ideally open and accessible to residents as much as possible. So ideally, maybe have more signs outside, or on the website it says, here's when the parks are available from this time and you can use them. Two, guidance on such issues of park usage should be more clear and consistent with all residents. And then although a field or a park is available for rent, it should not be completely prohibited to be used or even for a limited time. Maybe you can just go online and just put a slot in and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I live here, find my information. Can I just put myself down for the slot? I'm gonna use it. Since that day, I have not used the field. I've been running my times at a public park, but the field itself is just not kept up very well, and it's dangerous for such activities such as sprinting. So I, like myself, and I know many others, want to use the park. So my recommendation is have the city council review the city policies to help citizens have better access to the city parks more easily. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much, John, for bringing this to our, we're very much aware of the confusion surrounding the rental of our various parks. That's something that we're working on right now to kind of simplify that and make it as to where there would just be, one central spot where people can go to reserve the various parks. Right now, it's where you got to go to the YMCA for the two ball fields plus the Miracle Field over there on the other side of 78, and then there's still, Peggy would be the contact for the MEC, which is the multi-event center right behind City Hall, and then there's still others like Kelly Craighead for if you wanted to go to Nimitz Park. And so, yeah, it's right now it's a little confusing, and so we're actively working right now to make improvements there. During the last council meeting, we had a display up on the screen of a calendar that you can go to make a reservation there and pay for the reservation, whether it's a practice or a game. So we're actively making steps right now to try to clean that process up and streamline it and get it to where it's a little bit more organized. So please bear with us as we implement the ideas that we have to try to make this a smoother process. But thanks very much for bringing this to our attention, and we'll come up with a solution for what to do during those off times when nobody has it, reserved. So I don't have all the answers myself right now, but this will be a collective effort among city council and staff, and then also our partners, the YMCA and various others. Councilman Hicks, do you have a comment?
I do have a comment. I had a phone call last night that somebody was ran off the fields again. This is my problem. These fields should be, unless they are reserved, they should be open for the public. Unless they have got a reservation paper or an email that they can show on their phone, hey, I've got it reserved, okay, no problem, they'll go find somewhere else. For us to run our residents off of these parks or these fields that they paid for or they are paying for with bonds is ridiculous. And I don't know how else to stress this, Mr. Reed. We've got to get this fixed.
Thank you, Councilman Hicks. Anyone else on council? Comments on this? Okay, I know it's a public hearing, I'm sorry, not a public hearing, but this is to be heard on, so. All right, next up is David Rodriguez. Do you have anything else to speak on?
I'll just say one quick thing. I was going to speak about 6 Charlie, but I haven't been here in a while, but I just want to say thank you to all the council members for helping make the city better. I know it's a thankless job. It's been a couple years since I addressed some of you, but I know it's a thankless job. So I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you. You may not hear enough, but certainly I want to be taking advantage of the opportunity to say thank you because, again, this is a great city and that's why I live here. So thanks for keeping the effort going to keep it great. Thanks.
Appreciate that, David. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Same goes, same sentiment back at you, Dave. I've known you for several years, 5 or 6 years now, and thank you very much for always paying attention to what's going on and coming up here, organized and giving presentations like you always do with all your facts and your concerns. So thank you very much. Much appreciated. All right, next up, Jeff McLaughlin.
Good evening, Jeff McLaughlin, 189 Cardiff. Ms. Sanchez-Stevens, I just want to say congratulations again. First time I've been able to see you since you were sworn in. You won, you can run this however you want. I'm just going to give you a little bit of advice. Folks in District 5 want to reach out to you. They don't want to deal with your henchman, Lewis, calling people cowards, trying to bait me into fights on Election Day. So you can take that as you would. Let's go. Joel and Terrence, the bookends. Nobody is intimidated by you. City Hall has paper-thin walls, so if you want to keep cornering people and trying to threaten them and intimidate them to get them to resign from committees, there will be political fallout. I'll just close with both of you. Good luck on your reelection.
Next up, Kara Hazley. Am I pronouncing that right? Kara Hazley?
Heasley.
Is Kara still here? Oh,
No,
okay.
she
said it out. Didn't know her name. Thank you, Peggy.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I would like to express my support for item 6B, the rezoning case. I was initially opposed to the rezoning because I did not know what type of development was being proposed. But I have since met with Mr. Van Nest, and he explained in great detail the plans for the self-storage facility he would like to build on this tract. I understand that the proposed rezoning is not in compliance with the city's current future land use map. However, I believe that a self-storage facility, as described by the applicant, will have a lesser negative impact on the surrounding homes than just about anything else that could or would be developed there. With the exception of a single home, in my opinion, the lot is not desirable for a single home and is priced well beyond what anyone would pay for residential land, so it would eventually be developed with a high-intensity use. Traffic along Boardfield Road is major concern for myself and my neighbors, who have all owned these tracts for over 20 years or more. With commercial developments going in around Walmart and the new apartments under construction, we anticipate it will even be worse in the near future. Traffic speeds around the blind curve across from Thistle Creek Drive, and because of this, I do not feel my daughter can safely cross Boardfield to walk to and from Dobie Junior High, less than a half a mile away. Even a small residential development of 10 to 20 homes would generate more daily traffic than one peak hour traffic than the self-storage facility. Mr. Van Nest has clarified his intentions that the storage facility, when consist only of single-story enclosed units, would be fully fenced with a screen-type fence between my property and the storage facility, will be manned 6 days a week, closing at 6 or 7 p.m. each day, and will have downward-pointing security lighting on the building, which will minimize the impact to my and my neighbors' properties. For these reasons, I feel comfortable supporting this zoning change request. Thank you for your time and for all you do for the city. Kara Heasley.
Thank you, Peggy. All right, duly noted. We're going to move on to item 8, consent agenda. Consent items. All items listed below are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda. So the items for the consent agenda include item A, approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting held on June 13th, 2023. Item B, approval of the final plat of Venado Crossing Subdivision Unit 4. And C, approval of the final replat of Cibolo Valley Ranch Subdivision Unit 1. Are any of these items needing to be pulled out?
Yes. Item
8C.
C? We got consensus on C? Okay, so we'll strip C out. Do I hear a motion to approve 8A and B? There a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so on 8C, do we want to have a discussion on that one?
Yes.
Go ahead, Councilman Hicks, you recognize?
I received a email from the applicant yesterday. Had some concerns with it because she's having, or she was confused as to how things were going with our planning department. So I did reach out to her. We talked today, let her know that I was going to pull it because we did discuss back in January the issue with the parking of parents along Rodeo Way. And she was offering up to make parking spaces, but then we'd have to have a variance. And I told her I was not down for a variance because you already have houses right there. Then you've got cars that are going to be parked up real close to the back of the property. We just denied a landscape requirement last meeting. And that was 43 or 42 or 41 feet, and this is 5 feet. So I've got a huge issue with that. So I did discuss it with her. She understood why I was going to pull it and discuss it. I have no problem approving this final replat as long as whenever they bring back the land study that there is no parking at the back of the businesses. So she understands that, and that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilman Hicks. Frank Garza, is there a shot clock item on this one if we don't approve it?
Yes, sir. It's a plat, so there is a shot clock with the plat process. But if council denies it with stating the reasons it's denying, it could go back to the applicant to fix whatever the council finds.
Okay, so we must take action tonight.
Yes.
Right? One way or the other. Okay.
No, ma'am.
So the plat, my understanding is the plat has on it some limitations placed by planning and zoning about traffic studies. Is that correct? So can you or the applicant, is the applicant here?
Yes.
Can you come, both of you come address kind of what's going on with that? Because that's sort of unusual, kind of unusual, sometimes unusual.
Well, what I can tell you is we had a nice conversation today with the city engineer from KFW and Susanna and Lindsay from planning. Where we have an issue, I'm Sarah Teal with MSL Investments. I'm the developer of the small center. I developed the center across the street, so I'm very familiar with the process. We have we've been before the council to receive approval on a cup for a small kiosk coffee drive-through and a small service center that'll be right next door that will house a pizzeria, a little breakfast shop, an eye doctor, and we're working on the last 2 small spaces, hopefully nice community services, just like the street, across the street where we've got Edward Jones, the fitness, and 7-7 Dental. We had submitted our plat for replatting because the Scooters Coffee is separately owned from the shopping center. The property was previously platted as a single 2-acre, 1.99 acres. Now it's being separated by the two different ownerships. We started going through that process, and this issue associated to the traffic on Rodeo Way is understandable. We experience it, again, as an asset manager for the property across the way. I deal with my tenants being disturbed by all the parents that park in the customer parking, and I've got signs and the whole shebang. However, that to me should be something that's addressed under the review of the site plan that shows that what we're planning to do with the property. Right now, we're just simply looking for the replat to be approved so it can be recorded, because it's one of the steps of the two separate ownerships. It's holding up and creating that conflict for those two different owners. That doesn't change the city's right to have further discussion, or your staff to have further review of the parking and or traffic or the queue up of Rodeo Way that traditionally in other cities I've dealt with or built in is handled at the time of the site plan, which has been submitted to your city with a traffic impact study that was requested back on May 1st. And we're now talking about expanding the scope. As of today, there was some discussion about how to bring Rodeo Way in. So we're just in conversation right now and hope to come with some kind of solution that won't further delay this project that we brought to you back in January.
Yes, ma'am.
So what we would ask the council to consider is going ahead and approving tonight the replat with no conditions attached, and allow for you to take this issue up associated to Rodeo Way when we come before you with the request to approve our site plan.
Okay, well, I just wanted to thank you very much for always working with us and communicating extremely well with us. I know that our conversations, like you said, date back to January and maybe even in December of last year.
Yeah, November was the start, yeah.
So I know that you've always been a person of your word, and you've always come and worked with us and worked with our planning and zoning department. So I personally have no doubt that you'll do as you said.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think both Joel and I actually got a chance to talk to Councilman Benson today about the additional parking. I called Susanna because there's a changing of guard. I'm sure you guys are all aware, but if people in the audience or not, you've got a changing of guard going on in planning and zoning. And so we were first working with a different group, and now we're working with a new group. And I had explained to Susanna the other day that our site plan that is in the hands of the city shows additional parking. That was our question back to the city, because we had offered it as something to help solve some of the issues on the roadway. We don't need the additional parking. Our property designed the way we originally had it meets the requirements of our uses. Our property is not deemed to be a heavy traffic. We're looking at about 178 counts, which means in and out, and we've got two different, we came before you and you asked us to do two things to help you guys assist in relieving some of the stress on Rodeo Way. The first thing was to take our driveway into our property and push it as far back as possible on Rodeo Way, which it is literally in the very farthest it can be while still recognizing the 20-foot buffer. And then we went to TxDOT and got the additional entrance off TxDOT that you asked for. We're still being faced with some of the issues associated to concerns about what's happening on Rodeo Way. I don't know how I can fix it, but that's why we offered to work with the city with either providing some parking spaces or whatever. We feel like we've done all we can, but it sounds like we are being asked to do more studies associated to how to help with that relief, and we're happy to continue to work with the folks that you guys have governing that.
Right.
I'm going to tell you, I don't think that you need to do any more studies, because this is a police problem. Our police need to go out there. We've got signs up, and they need to go out there and they need to write tickets. End of story. We just need to go out there. It's a police problem. It's policing. We've got the signs up. Ms. Cunningham asked to get them. We had several people come and ask to put them up. I've been getting calls from people I know several streets down saying they're parked all the way at PJ Pollock, complaining that that's where they're at. So this is a problem that our police need to go and address. You know, and one thing I found disturbing today when you told me that these parents, you know, the business owners will come out and say, hey, this is for parking only, and then they give them the bird. That's disturbing to me.
Yeah.
You know, they need to just go ahead, call the police, and granted, by the time our police probably get there, you know, they're gone. But this is a policing problem,
Well,
and
the police
we
have been
need to have our
wonderful.
police out there.
They've been wonderful to direct us to put the signs up, so our signs have always been up. We've painted our curbs, and like you point out, our tenants are going out and tapping on windows, and the parents won't even roll their windows down. And like I said, I got the report of being flipped off, and I thought, come on, this is that, you know, the ladies at Edward Jones deserve free lunch wherever you can take them because they're such sweet ladies. But it's hard when they're, not able to have their customers. They literally schedule their customers, as does the dental, as does the fitness, around the time that they know the parents are gonna be sitting in those spots, which is just really not fair.
That's not fair. That's not right.
Could I ask a real quick question? This is a replat, so we originally platted this. Is that correct?
Yes.
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 And none of these, so we originally platted it. We knew about what it was gonna be when we platted it, right?
Yeah.
No, this is a new use for.
It's a new use, Mr. Benson, because they're splitting it.
No, I
Okay.
get that, but it was at
But it
one
still
time
falls under the
platted, it
zoning.
was at one time platted as a 2-acre piece of property that was
Zoned
commercial
the
use,
way it is
right?
today.
Well, it was zoned, but we didn't know there was going to be a coffee shop there.
Well, we
So when the
put a cup on
development
here,
comes
so we
forward-
knew, when did we do the cup?
January.
So we knew in January there was gonna be this, right?
Yes.
Now, you're saying it's a replat because in January, that was gonna be part of the entire 2-acre piece, was a coffee shop, and they
No,
split
we
ownership
submitted
after that?
We submitted our plat on February 14th,
So,
replatting.
so replat, just in the English, means we had a plat and then we're redoing it, right?
You're just splitting it so that
Okay,
you can have two
but-
different owners.
But there was one owner at the time when we put the cup on.
Correct.
Is that right? And we knew there was gonna be a coffee shop there because we knew we had to cup that.
Right.
And then somewhere along the way, you sold the property, split it in whatever, half.
No,
or
it was already, that was already the decision. This replat came as a result of the two separate, the small 13,000 square foot retail center or service center and the small coffee shop. So the replat is all about that happening. So it was always presented that that was going to be a scooter coffee.
Right, so I guess here's my point then. We always knew that there was gonna be a scooters there in the original plat. There was no original plat.
No, the original plat was a single piece of property, and we came before you to take that single piece of property and simply
split it.
created a line through it.
And that was in January when we did the cup.
Yes.
Yeah, we first came to the city in November of last year, but it came before you all in January.
What I'm getting at is that we've known about this coffee shop since January, right?
You guys have, the city's known
Because
since
we
November.
asked you to go to 1103 and get with TxDOT. We asked you to move things back in the back. So it seems to me that now we are in July, and we're now asking for additional studies that are actually sort of the cart before the horse on a plat anyway. And we've known about this for 6 months. So today you said you had a meeting. I was listening to this part where you said there's now requesting additional TIAs or additional impact studies, et cetera. What, can you tell me what?
Yeah, if
let
I
them-
can explain
Yeah,
that,
please.
yes.
Yeah.
When the plat, and Chris if he knows a way of saying it better. We allowed the replat to continue with just a TIA worksheet. So that one you just give basic information, how much is this going to, how many trips is this going to generate? And it did show that it was going to require additional study. However, our city engineer allowed it to move forward and put it off to the site plan, approval of the site plan at a later date.
And this traffic study was just on 1103 or just on Rodeo Way or on both?
You have to, whatever the trip generation shows, you have to study.
So in the TIA that they provided approximate turning movements from both of their driveways. When we reviewed the TIA, we noticed some inconsistencies with what TxDOT's doing on 1103. They were showing full access on 1103 with left and right turning movements in and out. TxDOT's gonna be putting a median there, which means it's a right in, right out only driveway, which means anyone wanting to go left on 1103 is gonna have to go to Rodeo Way to the light in order to turn left. And so when we looked at the TIA, we had that concern and we asked them to look at the intersection of Rodeo Way. That's our primary concern. People coming out of the subdivision, how long are they gonna be stuck at that intersection trying to get out? This is separate and independent from the cars that are parking on the side of the road. Yes, that is an issue that impacts traffic, but just traffic flowing through normally without cars stopping on the side of the road, what's gonna happen? And so That's why we asked them to look at that intersection, do an analysis, prepare a model. What is the flow going to look like? And are there any operational improvements that need to be constructed there in order to improve the efficiency of the intersection? Operational improvements could be striping. Right now, that's 44 feet of pavement on Rodeo Way with no striping, which kind of encourages people to park on the side of the road. If we striped it as 4 lanes, that would discourage people. So that's one of the things I asked them to look at. Changing signal timing, maybe something we have to ask TxDOT to do to improve the efficiency, or maybe we don't do anything. But the trigger for a TIA is 76 trips per hour. They're at 178, which is what's triggering this requirement.
Okay. They're just trying to sort out the plat from the replat.
And it's not necessarily a requirement.
Newer things.
Sorry, it's not necessarily a requirement on the plat. It's a requirement at time of site plan and so just so everyone's aware, you need to do a TIA.
Right, well, it seemed like the note became part of the conditions.
Well, I think planning and P and Z
No, I'm just
was the one
trying to
that did that.
understand how that got there, that's all.
Yeah, so my recommendation is approval with an understanding that a TIA has to be performed at site plan.
Which would be standard anyway, right?
Yes.
That's part of, okay.
And the TIA's been provided, the standard TIA's been provided. Today's meeting at 2 o'clock that he's discussing talked about expanding the scope, and so we were talking about what else we could do to expand the scope. The discussion that he's sharing is from today's meeting at 2 o'clock. The original TIA that was submitted, which was what was requested back on May 1st, we did not get a chance to have a conversation with the engineers. Today's conversation we instigated as opposed to them calling us, which is more traditional. But there are some elements that they'd like to look at. One of the concerns I have about today's meeting was discussing the impact of when the school is open. So first discussion by the other engineer present on the call was to wait until school opened to count the cars that use Cibolo, Rodeo Way, which everyone was wonderful to agree that's a long time and that would be an unnecessary delay. So we're trying right now to come up with a concept that would help capture, and I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with what was suggested, but I'm the least person on the totem pole of knowledge associated to traffic count, so I'm going to allow something to come together. But what I would ask and plead is that we actually get something very concise as to what is wanted, because it feels like the goalpost keeps changing. And that's what's really difficult for us, is that thank you for recognizing, we work, I show up every time, we come to meetings, we read everything, but we really have felt the impact of the changes. The added spaces were put there at the suggestion of the previous planning person so that they could be looked at the time of site plan review, because it was something that we thought we were waiting on the city to tell us whether they wanted us to help with those spaces. So we, again, spent the money to put them on the plan, to make the changes, to adjust some of our landscaping and our impervious cover to match up, to try to facilitate, where I could have saved all that time and money for my client if someone at the city would have come back and said, hey, we talked to the school and they're gonna take care of this, or we're gonna get the police started to figure that out.
And that's where I've got an issue, is because of the fact that we told our staff back in January to go get with the school district. Here it is June, end of June, which you could have done a traffic study May, April, had they gone and did their job and reached out to the school, said, hey, y'all need to do something. Or our police need to go out there, write tickets, whatever. They should have got back with you and said, no, we're not gonna need that extra. Council won't approve a variance where you've got 5 feet between a parked car and somebody's rear gate. Somebody dropped the ball, and they dropped it bad. And so you're right. We shouldn't have to delay you any longer, waiting till August to start having traffic come in there again with the school in place to get a traffic count. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Okay, so Councilwoman Cunningham has, and this isn't even an agenda item, so we gotta wrap this up, so.
Well, and there's no, because there's no, as to the point that was made, there's no striping there, which is a major concern. But understand, the additional reporting that I have to do on this little project could cost me $12,000 to $14,000 to do a study that is about a street that's not my street. That's coming out, it's a street into a subdivision, it's not a main road. And that's where my concern is that surely, if you guys have had this problem all this time, someone has studied that road. TxDOT's project itself, which I think was confirmed today on the call, extends beyond that intersection 800 feet, because they obviously noticed it was a problem. Does someone have something from TxDOT that talks about, you know, I'm developing a small project for a family. You know, $14,000 is a lot of money to hit my budget, but that's simply coming from the request because they don't want to not have the information to answer questions that might come up later. I just don't know that I'm the person that should have that impact.
That's what I was getting to.
Yeah.
I don't think that this should 100% be on you. Yes, you're adding traffic to that intersection. Yes, that intersection is a mess. But I would like staff to kind of, how can we help here? The problem is not caused solely by those businesses that are already there or the businesses that are coming in. And I'm not sure how to remedy that because it does feel like an undue burden on a business owner, developer, putting something in at 76 people, maybe an hour. That's a lot of people. I wouldn't want that in down my driveway, but off of 1103 off the rodeo way.
Now, that's 178 a day in 2 entrances in and out. So you divide that by 12, it's 98, and then you've got, yeah, okay, no, it's full day, is what I got from my civil engineers. It's the 178, I've got it written down, so I wouldn't say it wrong. It's 178, it was on the yellow piece of paper. 178 divided by 2 is 98, and that's in and out, and I've got 2 entrances. So break that down to 45.5. Just
Okay.
giving you the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, you have a wonderful development there. We all want it. I mean, you've got some great stuff coming in there. I wish we would have just got this thing going in January. That way we'd be getting close to opening, so.
Me too,
Yeah,
me too,
let's,
my dear.
yeah, let's get this rolling.
We know that road and that intersection is a problem, and we don't want to ignore the fact that it's a
Yeah.
problem. Whatever you want there, we have
Yeah.
to still understand the impact of it, but I do
Yeah.
agree that
And I would love to have them look at, that's why we pushed to try to get them to look at our site plan. Your city does different than other cities. You guys have it where the plat has to be recorded before the site plan is accepted to even be reviewed. But we actually did the pushback that you requested and extended the driveway on our development to make sure that things wouldn't queue in the street, but they would come onto the property. So we've tried to make some design features using more land than we needed to. We could have been like every other developer who maximizes the land and puts a ton of stuff on it and no parking. That's not what we have designed here. That's not what this center is about. It's about having another nice community center.
Yeah, it's gonna be great, and I can't wait.
Thank
So-
you.
I'll make a motion to approve the final plat of Cibolo Valley Ranch subdivision Unit 1.
Do I hear a second? Okay, Katie, second. Okay, we're gonna start with Councilman Benson.
Is that with or without the plat note that P and Z put on? No note, right?
With no note.
Then aye.
Nay is your answer?
No, aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said aye.
No, sorry.
He said aye. He
I
said
said
aye.
then aye. My bad. It does sound the same. Yes, sorry, Mayor.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, moving on to 9. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna move it up a little bit. We have some folks in the audience here tonight, and I want to go ahead and get to some of these items. So I'm going to skip on up to 11A, discussion action on a small business award named for former Mayor Sam Bowder. This award will be given each year to a small business that meets the criteria the council will put in place for this award. So this is something that Mayor Boyle and I have had a few discussions on. And so, Stasha, if you don't mind, come on up to the podium and tell council what you have in mind for this, and then after you're done, I'll say a few words about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Allen. Thank you, council. Yeah, you know, we get down in the trenches and we talk about we have all these checks and balances in place to keep these developers from doing the bare minimum. But something I'd like to focus on is some of the commercial businesses that are going above and beyond. You know, just this weekend, Walmart, you know, they had a tournament out at our baseball fields, and they raised money for the Miracle Network. And Peggy, do we have those slides? Yeah. So I brought some slides in. This one's a pretty neat one. Thank you, Susie. This is a deal for a fire station back in 1990. And if you go up, please, or down, or whichever. But you know, this kind of highlights the different businesses, how they work together. The Cibolo State Bank, Buell's. What was it? I can't read it. It's their what was it called? Their nursery. I'm sorry. And you know, in the different, you know, the ROTC, and all the different entities, they would come together, and basically, I mean, it was like potluck, right? So you'd bring, you know, all the different entities together. But if you would you go in some of the business pictures? Yeah, there. You know, you look at Harmon's and their Thanksgiving giveaway every year. I know several of you, Joel, Mark, Katie, you know, come out to those items, but just keep scrolling through, you know. But it shows all the, you know, there's Just Focus, Wing It, you know, the different events that these different businesses bring. It doesn't just have to necessarily be a small business. You kind of, you know, get the idea that, you know, you do what you can, right? McGarrell's and Embrace are always doing things above and beyond. Premier ER, they're always doing hydration stations. They're giving stuff away, but they're out in the community. And I think, you know, our Gary Kelly Award, you know, it's really cool that, you know, it's the Gary Kelly Award. It's named after somebody that you wouldn't normally know. I didn't know Gary Kelly, but I know that through the years, learning about him and what his impact on the community is really touching, and crossing paths with others that have received the award. And I think that with the businesses that we, you know, set up a criteria. I mean, we're all, you know, you guys will put it in your lap. You guys are very smart people, and we'll find a way to develop a criteria that would highlight these businesses. The Noble Group, this building here, when Donnie Jackson built this building, he wanted to showcase the community. He didn't want to just build it to, you know, pump out drinks at the bar. He built it for the FFA, for the Masons, for the Boy Scouts, for the HOAs. You know, 9 times out of 10, it's free of charge to come use this building, which, you know, and this is something where people can gather. And I think we, you know, it's about time in our history that we highlight people that do things for a community. And if it's I know from being a small business owner, you know, making a decision to buy, you know, safety awards for my employees, and what, you know, a lot of thought goes into that, and a lot of thought goes into how you can get out into the community and, you know, show the community that you care about it. And I think we ought to celebrate those type of businesses. What's the criteria? I don't know. You know, what are the guidelines? I don't think we should restrict it to any certain type of business, but, you know, from H-E-B, Walmart, all the way down to, you know, the axe throwing place next door. So, you know, those are some of the things. And as timing would have it, this is something that's been on my heart for quite a while. And as it would have it, we lost a great leader in Sam Bowder. And, you know, I think it would only be fitting that we name the award after him. So that's what I got. So
thank you, Stosh. And
yep.
if you don't mind, I'll just kind of chime in if you can stay at the podium. So, you know, when Mayor Boyle and I started talking about this a few months ago, you know, we were kind of spitballing the idea and trying to think of, you know, how can we honor these businesses that give so much back to our community? And so what we really want to do, and so this is completely separate from the Gary Kelly Award. So Gary Kelly is really meant to honor an individual who gives time and volunteers, you know, from their personal time. And so at first, you know, I wasn't even sure what that was. You know, I thought it was, you know, somebody that you know, does a lot of volunteer work in the city of Cibolo, And then I found out that it's really more so geared towards folks that spend a lot of time on our boards, you know, folks like Melvin Hicks, like your father, you know, that would come and serve on, you know, all the different various boards and then put all that work together, and then that would be the person that would get nominated. And so this is really very separate from the Gary Kelly Award, and I do think that naming it after Sam is a fitting honor for that family, because, you know, Sam did give of himself for the city of Cibolo for 14 years, and he helped you know, establish Cibolo as a great place for people to come and raise a family and to open a business. And so I think that the criteria for this, as far as, you know, what businesses should be considered, would be businesses that give back to the community. And I don't necessarily think that, you know, the business that spent the most money should be the one that wins. You know what I mean? It's not like a, you know, like a dollar contest or anything like that. You know, like I don't know, what's it say, like GMC Chevy, or, you know, whatever that one was that's, you know, sponsored Cibolo Fest. Let's say they write a check for $35,000. That doesn't necessarily mean that Gun Chevy's going to get it that year, but at least that gets their name in the hat.
Right.
And so what I'd like to do is to have a way that people can vote on what business, you know, that they should win this award. And it wouldn't necessarily be where there's only one winner. There could be a first, second, and third place, you know, where we do it up, and we have some nice trophies, some nice plaques that we can give to the business owners and honor them at a city council meeting, whether that's in January or February of every year. And we could give the citizens the opportunity to vote on them, you know, just like I see like these magazines or, you know, the community newspapers that do this all the time, where they'll have, you know, the citizens in the area vote on, you know, best burger, you know, and then they'll vote. So we don't necessarily have to do that as the categories, where we have, you know, like a restaurant category and then like a, you know, a shopping store category or anything like that. We can just kind of leave it kind of open. But I think that in order to qualify to be in the running, then the business has to be, you know, a business that you know, that gave back to our community, whether that's, you know, donating for Cibolo Fest, Cibolo Summer Nights, you know, any of the non-city sanctioned events that go on, like the barbecue cook-off or the senior soiree, or, you know, anything else that we do or that happens here in the city of Cibolo. Let's just put it that way. And so, yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea, and I think it's something we could explore. And I'd love to get council's input and feedback, because this is a joint effort. You know, it's something we all want to kind of come together and work with staff on. I've already talked to Mr. Reed about this extensively, and so, you know, staff is on board. We got their support, and so we just need to talk about this and see what anybody else has to say. Any ideas, Councilman Hicks?
I'll just say first, I like the fact that you said any business, because when you put small business down there, we all know that since Walmart has came in, they have bent over backwards. Robert you go in there and ask for something, he'll give the shirt off his back. So, you know, scratching off the small from there would help, because as you know, HEB has given a lot since they've came. So it's not just small business, it should be any business.
Right, that's what I envision.
Because even Ison, they're a big company, but they've given back to the community as well. So that's one thing. One thing that I love the fact that we're going to name it after Sam Bowder. He was a thinker. He always thought for the future. My concern, I know that you're saying, you know, that I've got a lot of citizens that are asking for roads. I need stuff fixed. I want to take a huge part of our budget for this. I mean,
this would be less than $500.
Okay. I understand. I know that I've got people that they want their roads. They want parks. They need parks, and I understand it. We've got to do it. So that's what was my concern when I first read the agenda item was, okay, small. Okay, well, I get it. How are we going to do this? This is something that we'll have to get together. Maybe at our next budget workshop, take 15, 20 minutes out of it to discuss it. I don't know, but when I first saw it and read it in small business, I'm like, well.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of nuts and bolts to it, Joel, that need to be, be figured out. But, something that I keep going back to is like the Heisman Trophy Award. It's the most outstanding college player. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's up to the people that vote for it to
Right.
figure out what that means. But yeah, I didn't know that the small business was in there. But yeah, it's to highlight anybody, anybody that contributes. We had a situation here last year when a business was doing a lot, but a lot of it didn't land in Cibolo, and this kind of, I think, would incentivize some of the businesses to, maybe give a little bit more to Cibolo rather than
Right.
the surrounding,
Because I was also
area.
thinking that maybe this is something we push off to the EDC, let the
That's a
Economic
good,
Development
that's a good option, too.
Corporation to have them look at it and pull it out of their budget.
As far as Sam goes, Susie, I hope you excuse me for saying this, but people don't realize in 1987 when he took office in May, he lost his wife. What was it 4 or 5 months later?
Yeah, it wasn't
And
much.
I was actually in her class, and he not only was a first-time mayor, but he was, he raised his daughters right in the public's eye, and in uncharted territory. And when you look at somebody that not just took that leap, but just stuck with it all those years, and look at you got to be proud of something like that. And when you have an award like that you want to emulate a person like that, it kind of makes it easy to figure out who's deserving and who's not. So just want to throw that out there.
I like that.
Yeah,
Mr. Boyle.
Yeah, so just talking it through, this helps us get input from everybody, because this is something that we all want to shape and leave a legacy behind, as something that will happen every year, and so anyway.
And really, there's no wrong answer.
Right.
To
Dave?
Very in favor of this. I think it's a really good idea. I just like all of our other awards. I brought it up before. We need to have some kind of process in how it's getting.
Yep.
It needs to be written down. It needs to be clear. You'd hate to have something so great with such great intent be convoluted into favoritism. And it happens. You can't take away all of that, but if we have a process in place that's written down, it's at least a little bit harder to argue that it's great.
Yep.
I'm very excited about it.
I envision Robert Mahoney picking it, so that's good.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, please do.
I just want to speak to the business about selection. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned some kind of a public polling. And I want to be cynical about that for just a minute, because I can point to a couple of cases where I think it's not really that accurate. And if I may, I'll tell you about a couple of them. One of them is a very good friend of mine that is supposedly the best realtor in the golf course. Because it's one of these kinds of campaigns where everybody gets in and votes and find out you can vote again the next day. So it's, it may be the best realtor, but I don't think it's totally true. The second thing is I worked for the city for over 30 years. There's a gigantic fireworks show up in North Texas. I won't name anything in particular here, but the employees of that city are solicited to start bombing social media with folks that we're in the top 10 in the whole country, 8 or 10 weeks in advance. So it might be in the top 10 best fireworks show on July 3rd in Addison, Texas. It may be, but I'm just saying that the way of amassing the votes, the statistics seems a little bit.
Okay. Anyone else have any commentary? Thank you very much, Josh. Oh, I'm sorry.
The only thing I would add is that it'd be possible to have small business and a large business.
Okay, do 2 awards?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's nothing wrong with that, we can do that. Small and
I
large.
want to add too, when we advertise this, one of y'all was mentioning, I think it was Josh, Gary Kelly. Not many people know who he was, not many people worked with him. And I think that when you're doing the
Absolutely, yeah. So the more that we can honor Sam through this award and educate existing and future Cibolo business owners and citizens as to his legacy, that just would be a great thing, yeah, and exactly what this is all about. So thank you very much, Stosh. And while you're up there, just stick around. We're going to go through these next two. 11B, discussion action on allowing the powwow to utilize the multi-event center and other city property on November 4th and 5th, 2023. Stosh Willis.
Do you have those pictures for the powwow? Just, if you would, just kind of scroll them. One of these pictures, thank you, council, very much for the last agenda item. By the way, one of these pictures, you're going to see all the sponsors. And, you know, this is our third, this hopefully will be our third annual powwow, but, you know, we've learned a little bit something every year as this moves along. I know Randy's been there, Katie, Mark, of course. Of course, Colonel Hetzel's been at both of them, and Joel's been a monster, like he does at all the events. And thank you, Joel, for all of your help with it. Just, you don't have to ask. Joel's just there, and we've really we've had the blessing to work with a lot of different people to make this a special event. This is in the same breath as the Houston powwow and the Austin powwow. It garners the same numbers. We have over 100 dancers. Last year the weather really bit us, and we had to shuffle it back a month on the fly, which diminished our numbers, but our attendance was still solid. It was over 1,000 people. We get, and you guys should have got a spreadsheet on the prize money. The thing that makes this so special is, so let me back up a second. I'm from an Indian reservation, northern Wisconsin, Lac du Flambeau Indian Reservation. Up there is a little bit different than it is here in Texas. Texas, we have 2 Indian reservations in the state. We have one down at the Kickapoo Casino, and we have one up at the Lake Livingston, I believe. It's a Comanche reservation. When you go to different parts of the country, like Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota, New Mexico, Arizona, you name it, you have several Indian reservations. So to go to a powwow is, you're usually going to a Navajo powwow or a Sioux powwow. This is more of a confederacy, a gathering of the nations, a celebration of who you are. And with that brings a celebration of who we all are, all of our different culture and whatnot that we bring. You know, I grew up, I didn't grow up until I was in 2nd grade. I lived right across the street from what's called the Indian Bowl. Well, I would see this every weekend. Didn't see it for the last 40 years, hardly, you know, being down here. But the prize money is really what brings the dancers, the talent in. And just to give you an idea, like I said, we are dubbed as one of the largest powwows in the state of Texas. Houston gives away $15,000. We give away $50,000. And all of that is done through our hard work, garnering businesses to volunteer, to help sponsor, coordinate, attend, and hats off to the businesses here, man. You know, but every year, you know, usually I'm on the other side and we're being asked, but we got to go through the process of asking for the use of the multi-event center. I will ask Friday evening, Saturday, and Sunday, the weekend of November 4th. Why November 4th? Because we honor our veterans. We honor our veterans that weekend, and you know, there's special parts carved out in the powwow that we talk about the service of each and every individual in attendance. We ask use of the stage. We ask that you have a dumpster available that we can throw all of our trash in. We have volunteers that help with that. Barricades, possibly advertise on the website, the tent and the benches. But something that I wanted to add this year that's a little different, and help me out, guys, is you know, there's always these last minute things that come up. And I'll ask council that if you decide to approve this, that you leave it, you know, I don't know, we could put a number or a scope up to staff at their discretion. Like if we go, oh shoot, we need cones, we asked that staff would just go ahead and do that rather than try to catch a council meeting and then we don't get to use the cones or something. You know, I don't know how to word that, but, you know, give staff a little bit
Understand
of
it. Understand.
discretion to work with that. So, with that also is the prize money. I'll go back to that. I'm know it's budget season and I wanted to ask for about $100,000, but I'm gonna scale that back to, a meager 10. So if you guys can make the mark at 5, I'd be very happy. The Northeast Partnership donates $5,000 every year. Several businesses do. And, the economic impact of this, I'm going to tell you, I go far and wide to these powwows. And, if we had a hotel, it'd be full. We'll get there someday. But the momentum of this event is unbelievable. The trajectory that this event's on, it's really a force to be reckoned with. Just amongst the Native community, but also we're going to bring in the school district. We have help. I talked to one of the school board members, and she's going to help me with getting the history classes and whatnot to attend. I have a meeting set up here later on this summer with the Northeast Lakeview. Same thing, to help illustrate. And our goal is to give 2 scholarships out this year. So that's my story. And if you guys have any questions, feel free.
Mr. Boyle, I would encourage you to go to the EDC for that, the funds and see because it is a promotion of our city, and ask them as well.
Well, I would ask that if you could put it in a motion that you recommend that I go to EDC to get the funds approved, I would be much appreciated,
Well,
sir.
I don't know that I can do that.
There's a way to do that.
But
I'm good with donating the space and the barriers and all that stuff. One thing that I would like to see is maybe working with our historic committee to have them tie it.
It's a great idea.
Like how does this actually apply to Cibolo? Are we just we happen to be a spot on the map that we decided to do this powwow? Or how does Native American culture actually tie into our area? I know Judy has a ton on that. So
That's a great idea and a recommendation.
we can do a display or whatever, it could be something about the history, students can do. I know they start moving into Native American history in the first few months of the year in certain grade levels.
Yeah, 7th grade.
So, that would be a good way to tie in the school district as well. Just make sure that people understand this is just some random place that we decided to have.
Right. Thank you.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve 11B as written.
Do I hear a second? Okay, we'll start with Councilman Hicks.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Ayes have it, 7-0.
Thank you all very much for your time tonight.
And as far as your budget request, yeah, we'll take a look at the EDC, and then we'll discuss it during the next budget meeting that we have, budget workshop. And we'll take a look at the events budget, and then see what all those are earmarked for, and see if there may be some
Yes, sir.
money already sitting aside. If not, then
Let me throw this in there just so it's on public record and so just so you know, Mary Allen, our books, we're now keeping our books in house. You'll have transparency with that 24 hours if you want to see where the funds go.
okay. Thank you, Mayor Boyle.
One other thing, Stas, does shirts do anything to help with this?
Shirts used to help out a little bit, Councilman Roberts. This had a few road bumps along the way starting out, so.
I guess the reason I'm asking this is because I feel quite certain, because I've been there, I've seen the scope of people you bring, just filling their hotels up.
Oh, yeah, and so to answer your question, the city of Selma has been gracious enough to waive their hot tax to allow this group to come in and stay for the weekend, which is a tremendous help.
Well, Selma has helped.
Yeah, Selma has, and Ralph has helped in the past year too.
The first year, they had
They're supposed to do an exhibition that year, and it fell through, so there was,
And maybe it's not money, maybe it's support, public safety support.
Yes.
Things like that.
Yes.
That takes the burden
And I got to say, the community's been, you know, not just our city manager, city secretary, all of our staff have been behind it. Our police, our fire come out, and it's a tremendous event along with our council. So thank you all for supporting it.
All right. And then, okay, thank you very much, Tosh. And then, yeah, you just hang around.
Do I have another? No.
One more to talk about.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about 11C, discussion action on dedicating a tree in memory of former mayor Sam Bowder. And so, this one is, you know, something that we're doing, not necessarily for everyone in Cibolo, but especially for Sam, because he was our mayor for 14 years. And so we do have, over at the new City Hall Annex, where we dedicated 2 trees so far. One was for Maggie's husband when he passed, and then the other one was for your father, Councilman Hicks. And so we would like to also do a tree in honor of Mayor Sam Bowder and potentially plant it in, when is your sister coming? Is it November?
She's coming in September.
In September? Okay. So potentially September to
That'd be
do,
good.
yeah, to do the tree dedication ceremony. So we could do that. Is she gonna be here for a long time, or what are we looking at?
We can schedule it.
Okay, so I'm thinking maybe like before the city council meeting, like the first city council meeting in September, if she'll be here that time. And then that way we could have a little ceremony over there where we say some words, and then, you know, your family would have opportunity to say a few words as well, and then we could say a prayer, and then dedicate the tree. Okay?
If there's, so we have 2 trees at the City Hall Annex, but if there's somewhere else in the city property, that would be more fitting, that he really likes this tree in here or something, then you can think about it and let us know. But I think that we should put it somewhere where, if there is somewhere that's special or.
Am I allowed to say something? Can I say something?
Absolutely.
You come up to the.
I really don't like speaking in public, but I thank y'all so much for doing this. It means a whole lot. I appreciate it. I shared with Mark and Stosh that my dad actually was the one that convinced the city to buy the land where City Hall is.
Yep.
Because it was just a triangle of land at that time, and he's like, we should buy that. So, I mean, I think that'd be a great place, because he did convince them to buy it.
Maybe right here at City Hall.
Yeah.
Or right here on the City Hall property.
Yeah.
Since he's the one who.
Either that or.
I will, great point, because I know that Councilman Hetzel and I noticed that the big pecan tree that's been there for, I've been here since '86, so
Okay.
I've been there, I've
Right.
seen your dad, so that pecan tree at the base, it's half eaten. We're gonna have to look at cutting that thing down, and possibly we could
Replacing
plant a
it.
tree
Yeah.
in that same spot,
That'd be
dedicate
awesome.
to
Thank you.
Sammy.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I want to share one other little story I shared with them also. When my dad took over as mayor, let me tell you how far we've come. The city secretary at the time actually kept the books for the city in the trunk of her car.
Oh, yeah.
So that's really where we've come from. So it's pretty amazing for even me to drive down Main Street and see where we're at now. So thank y'all very much.
I know it's weird, because 78 was right there.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
78.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you very much. Anybody else have any commentary on the tree for Sam? Do I hear a motion?
I'll second that motion for sometime in September.
Okay, yeah, I'll text
To be
you and
determined.
let you know, the dates for the first or second meeting in September, and just let me know which one works better for you and your sister and the rest of your family. Okay, so we're gonna start with this one with, Councilman Beckman.
Aye.
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 Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna jump on back to item number 9, staff update. Thank you. Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So recruitment process, we do have applicants scheduled for a semifinalist round this week, and so we will be conducting interviews for the police chief. The CIP manager, he will start on July 17th. Under the RFQs and RFPs, just 2, and that would be for the public safety facility and the animal services facility analysis. So City Council started work on reimagining your 5-year CIP at your budget workshop last week. So for the public safety facility, we're still following council's direction from May 9th. An RFQ to pursue the better option was issued earlier this month, and the statement of qualifications are due by July 7th. We remain on track to return with an award of contract by September. We will provide an update at the next council meeting, July 11th, in the presentation on the 5-year CIP. So we'll be providing you information about that. I'll speak a little bit more about that presentation later on. On the animal services facility analysis, we'll work with council on the appropriate next steps and timing to pursue the design for this facility based on council's decisions on the 5-year CIP. So based upon your decisions over the next couple of months. On the CIP updates, the mid-block crosswalk on Main Street, Public Works staff will install this crosswalk in the next 30 to 60 days. If it will take into August, I will provide a separate update to council to explain the timing and why that is what it is. The Cibolo Valley Drive remains on schedule to be completed by August 20 of this year, and remains in budget. In meeting with the contractor this week, we remain confident that the pavement work will be done prior to the start of school on August 15th. We expect striping to be done also prior to the start of school. On Hakerville Road and the Town Creek Drainage Phase 2 project, it remains on schedule to be completed by December 2023 and within budget. The bridge deck is complete, curbs and sidewalks are being installed. Also, the contractor is working on the traffic control devices up at FM 78, and work has started on the Hakerville Road reconstruction, as you're aware. Staff has maintained communication with residents, and prior to the start of that reconstruction, hand-delivered neighborhood traffic routing diagrams to all residents directly affected by the lane closures, and we remain responsive when there have been concerns brought up. On the Public Works facility, this expansion remains on schedule to be completed mid-September. The metal exterior frame work is up. The front porch roof and soffits have been installed. Window areas have been trimmed out and windows have been installed. Stone mason work at the front entry has been completed. They're putting in the interior stud walls. Exterior walls have been insulated. The HVAC contractor has started work. Final grading around the building has also started. City Hall remodel, we provided a walkthrough prior to the council meeting tonight. Contractor is finishing demolition and trades are starting work. The contractor said he sees the delivery of the HVAC equipment as a critical project milestone. On Tolly Road, this project has been reevaluated based on additional research conducted by our engineers. More to be discussed as council finishes its 5-year CIP over the next 30 to 60 days as to what's the next step and what's the pace at which we pursue the Tolly Road project. Again, following council's direction on the 5-year CIP. Dean Road, Lower Seguin Road, and Bolton Road repairs. Our engineers are proceeding with final construction plans for these 3 roads and will be done by sometime in August. More to be discussed as council finishes its 5-year CIP in this budget cycle. Town Creek Trail, staff is continuing to work with the city engineer's office to submit an application to TxDOT. We expect to submit the full application to TxDOT this summer, finalize construction plans this summer, and initiate construction later this year. An update on the UPRR railroad crossings. Mayor Allen, Mr. Hicks, and city staff met with TxDOT representatives, actually right before the budget workshop, about proceeding with both Main Street and Country Lane safety improvements. TxDOT representatives stated TxDOT will cover all costs associated with this Country Lane safety improvements, given the history of accidents there, which will involve a slight realignment of the road crossing location. TxDOT will require the city to sign an agreement to maintain the striping following the project completion. So that's just maintaining striping like we do on other local roads. As for Main Street crossing improvements, the city will be responsible for the sidewalk crossing / the street improvements across the railroad. As you know, one aspect of that is we want our trail, Town Creek Trail, to go from where it is at HEB back along that open space and then cut back over to Main Street. It may not be as wide as it crosses the railroad tracks. We're going to be very sensitive to what UPRR is most comfortable with, but as it then gets off of the railroad tracks and then jogs back east to go over to the community center, it would again go back to the width. So we are working with UPRR on both of those projects. I'm going to continue to say what I hear from the TxDOT staff. It's important to note that TxDOT said that this is a 2-year process to get construction to construction once the agreements are in place. It's not a fast process when you're working with a railroad. Budget workshop recap. First, I want to say thank you to all the council members who were in attendance. I thought you did a fantastic job of working together, collaborating, and building your relationships to reimagine your 5-year CIP. Following the budget workshop from last week, we have already documented what the 2 groups came up with, and we are doing the following documentation. 3 things. What the 2 plans, the 2 groups, shared in common, what was common but placed in a different fiscal year, what was common but described differently, like parks. The 2 groups each did a lot of park improvements, but just described them differently. And actually, I should have said 4 things. The 4th is, what differences were in those 2? We're about done with all that work, and we'll have that ready by the end of this week. Following this work, we'll be tabulating the funding totals and how they work within available funds or what council identified as projects it would like to consider to be placed on a future ballot. I'll bring this to council at the July 11th council meeting, and we'll seek direction on a unified 5-year CIP. I planned on sending the material to you ahead of the packet so that you have a few extra days to look it over at the good work that you all did and to generate ideas on how to move from 2 to 1 5-year CIP plan. Again, it'll be in your packet, but I thought to give you a little more time, I'll send that separately as well. Redistricting survey, I sent you an email. My comment is you've received 39 completed surveys. Map 1 is ahead of map 2. I just encourage you to keep pushing that link to direct your constituents to go and vote on that map so that you have as much input as possible. On the comp plan update and the recap of the open house, we had about 20 members of the general public. I'm not including staff, and I'm not including council members or other appointed officials who were there. So it was a good turnout. I wouldn't say it was a super strong turnout. However, with that input, we had review of the boards of existing conditions, and we did collect their comments. You'll be seeing that feedback that we received at a future council meeting. Bandit sign enforcement, here's where I wrap up. We continue to see compliance from the home builders, and the majority of the signs are now from independent real estate agents or small businesses. If it's a first offense, our code enforcement team continues to make an effort to talk with the individuals or the companies and educate them about the ordinance. Over the past weekend, we picked up 4 signs from Pressure Washing Company. There were no home builder signs. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you very much. I noted that there was a woman who was doing a garage sale in my neighborhood last weekend. Her sign got picked up. Was that one of them too, or is it? No?
With the notes that I have here, it did not say a garage sale sign, so I'd have to ask if you want me to, Mayor, and I can follow up.
Yeah, all right. Well, yeah, it's interesting. Thank you. All right, yeah, I know the numbers are still with those, with our redistricting. I mean, what did we have, like 35 last time? Did we break 100 yet?
No, sir, you're at 39 responses.
30, it's really, okay. Do you think maybe we could put it together, like, they have to put their email address in there, right, when they submit it? The form, do you know? If not, maybe we could put together.
I'll look at it right now because I've gone to it and shown it to everybody.
Yeah.
I
don't remember.
Let me look at the email.
But maybe we could put together like a contest where, like, you know, if they win something, you know, for I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something to get the numbers up. It's terrible.
That's a lanyard.
Win something, I don't know what. There you go. Lunch with the mayor. How about that?
But you pay for
I'll pay. Let's do it. We need to get these numbers up. Think of something. We'll talk about that later. All right. Fire department update. What do we got?
It's in the packet.
Yes, sir, just in your packet.
Okay. Don't want to talk about it. All right. Number 10, ordinances. Approval, disapproval of an ordinance of the city of Cibolo amending UDC Article 4, zoning regulations, section 4.7.4.4. Old Town mixed-use overlay district regulations and adding a new section 4.7.4.4, non-conforming residential structures and lots. Yeah.
Second.
I'm going to recuse myself, just for the record.
Okay, so we'll start with Councilman Hetzel. Negative.
Aye.
4-2.
Positive, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, next up is, you know, I'm gonna, let's see, do we have anybody here for these, boards and committees? Let's go ahead and do that one, 11D.
So I have someone from District 4 who has applied. I reached out and spoke with her. District 4 doesn't have many openings right now. But I'll let, Danetta maybe been here to introduce herself before. But I would like to recommend, and I spoke with her about it, recommend her for the Parks Committee. She's been very active with the senior center, not in the senior center, she can get into that, but you know, and
I don't know, Katie. I do kind of fit in there.
Wow.
helping out with you know, things like that at the senior center. So I
Yeah.
think she would be a really good help for the Parks Committee. That girl who was here earlier has she's amazing, also just really fun.
It's because District 4 is just awesome.
Katie, Robert Teese is out. But we can still appoint somebody, just, okay. Just, okay.
Any questions?
I hadn't advertised it, so I have a couple of people who said that they were going to submit applications, but it doesn't do that. So I want to give everyone an opportunity to at least be interviewed for the position.
Any questions for Donetta Roberts?
I think she did around,
Ran for council back in
ran for council, but she's
last time.
been in attendance quite often since
Oh,
getting involved.
Another positive, our neighborhood is right next to Charlotte Park, which is one of our biggest parks.
Yep.
So, and I think you just got elected president.
Yes.
So there'll be that kind of inside person
Yeah.
for events and things that are happening at Charlotte Park.
Which one you running for, Parks and Rec?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm interested in helping any way I can. So if there's a vacancy on another board, I would be happy to be a part of that. And-
Actually, on the CIP, I saw that we had 6 district members and 1 ED, 1 TJ. Do we still have a vacancy?
Well, the CIP committee has not met, so most of those members are no longer, some of them are no longer here in the city.
Yeah.
So once you start being active with the CIP, you're gonna have to look at new members.
Okay, so we're not appointing right now?
That's up to you if you wanna appoint someone to it, but I do know that there's several members that are listed that do not live in the city.
Yeah.
Because it has not been an active committee for quite a while.
Okay, do I hear a motion for Donetta Roberts for Parks and Rec?
I make a motion to appoint Danetta Roberts to Parks and Rec.
Second. Okay, I got a motion and a second. We'll start with Councilman Hicks.
Aye.
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 Ayes have it, 7-0. Welcome, Donetta.
Thank you, council and mayor. Appreciate it. Just because it had a vacancy, so I was just, you know, again, anything I can do to help, so. Yeah, no, I understand. Can I make a quick comment in regards to the surveys for the redistricting? You know, Katie, you and I are a good team. We can walk the neighborhoods. Just saying. We did it on Buffalo Crossing. We can do it again. Thank you, council. Thank you, mayor.
We can start.
I would also like to make a nomination for planning and zoning, Ms. Maria Fishback, if you'd like to come up, please. I met Maria Fishback, and she's a District 5 resident, and she has lived in Cibolo since 1995. And she is very involved with our city, actually when it came to a lot of the traditional schools, really stood up regarding the zoning that took place at that time for that, advocated for sidewalks. And she loves the great city of Cibolo, and I would just like to ask you a question really quick, Ms. Maria, about your desire for coming on board with planning and zoning.
Well, I've been looking,
No, this would actually be nominated for District 5.
The only vacancy on P&Z right now is District 3.
Okay. I was hoping for reasons of incompatibility to respectfully remove Mr. Steve Cooper, if that was a possibility.
That is not on the agenda to act on tonight.
Okay, so what am I doing? Okay.
There's already two alternates for
Okay.
the P and Z right now.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
so I,
How about Parks and Rec?
planning and zoning would be great, unless there's another council person here who would, like to, consider nominating her full-time without alternate, in your district.
For District 30?
Well, I was gonna say, my district seems to be, difficult to get people to come forward, and while I keep bringing it up, I'm not having a lot of luck. I hope that every council member will think that intruding on my privilege or my territory, if you want to have somebody on there that's, from your district.
What district is it?
I live in District 5.
I know what it is.
Oh, Deercrest? I'm in the only street.
District 3, I think.
Right.
You know what I mean? On those two maps. Okay, do you want to give up your seat for her?
That's what I'm saying, I don't mind giving it up.
What about, who counts, you want to make a nomination for District 3?
So, do you have any experience with planning or zoning or any of the regulations?
Well, the only experience I have is like Ms. Sanchez said, that I have been instrumental in getting some sidewalks completed in my neighborhood. I've been instrumental in getting things fixed, like the streets and the sidewalks after, wear and tear. I was involved when the Ratcliffe property came before the P&Z and the city council both times. The first time for the multifamily, the second time for the CUP for the legacy school. I've been looking for an opportunity to serve my community. I've been in Cibolo since 1995. I've been here since when Sam Bowder was the mayor, and it wasn't a good time for a long time with small children and everything, but now that I do have an opportunity and the flexibility to serve, so I'm looking for an opportunity.
Planning and zoning and EDC are our two big committees. They have a lot of, power is not really the right word, but they have a lot of responsibility and really have to know the regulations and if they're doing it very well. I say that, so that's not just accurate. So it's really important that you be able to read and follow up on the EDC, make sure that you understand the regulations and that you're okay with asking questions. Nobody knows everything. It doesn't matter if you're on the P&Z for 20 years, you're still gonna have questions. There's always something new that pops up. Being able to ask questions, work with your team. A lot of the times in Cibolo, as you're aware with legacy, things can get contentious. And it's really important when you're a member of a committee that you're able and willing to work with the other people, even if you disagree. And be respectful of each other and understand that it's okay for people to have different opinions. Just because you have different opinions, it doesn't mean that everyone hates each other. But for P&Z and EDC, those are two really major committees. So are you comfortable with taking on that role and responsibility of making those major decisions that help shape our city?
Absolutely, and I believe that in learning a position, you have to read everything that comes before you. You have to ask questions. You take any training that might be available, right, to help you along. I don't have a problem with asking questions. I ask a lot of questions most of the time, and so I'm fully aware, of what it would entail, and I'm ready, and I have the time commitment to do it.
Okay, let me ask you this. So you mentioned earlier the Ratcliffe, I don't know, I can never pronounce it.
Ratcliffe.
Not
Ratcliffe.
Right.
But the Ratcliffe property,
Yeah.
and you were, I'm assuming, against the apartment complex, right? It to be rezoned to apartments, is that right?
At the time, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is your philosophy on apartments on Cibolo Valley Drive, 1103, just those two roads?
Well, again, it's hard to give an opinion on something when you're not involved in reading the applications and reading exactly what's involved.
In general, like.
Well, I think that they should be appropriate to where the UDC decides, right? It should be appropriate to the zoning, it should be appropriate to the area, and it should comply with the UDC.
So basically, you would protect and defend our flume, right? Meaning that if it's not currently zoned multifamily,
Need to say
Well,
something.
I'd have to review everything, right? I mean, it's kind of, it's a hypothetical, and that's very difficult to answer without having a real-life situation, a particular, right, an application, and reviewing everything that comes along with it.
Okay, so you don't have a preference either way?
Again, it's hard to say one way or the other, it just depends on what it is.
Point of order.
Yeah, Mayor, we can't be making, those are,
Just curious on that
yeah,
philosophy.
those are questions that we have to be very careful with.
So don't we have to have a realtor on planning and zoning? Isn't that part of the deal?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. I thought I saw somewhere, there were certain requirements on, there were certain,
No, sir.
no?
No, not for planning and zoning, no.
Yeah, there was like a building professional, wait, don't we have any sort of requirements at all? Like, what were our not requirements, what recommendations, like, what are our
Did somebody make
guidelines, though?
a motion?
Yeah, hold on one second, so we could, do you have any documentation on the guidelines at all? No?
There's
Okay.
nothing in the local government code, and I don't believe there's anything in your UDC. It would have to be in your UDC, and I don't believe it's there.
Okay, all right, yeah, so someone told me that recently, I thought there was a requirement. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Ms. Maria Fishback for planning and zoning in District 3. Can I get someone to second the motion?
I'll second the motion.
We'll start with Councilman Benson.
Aye.
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 All right, the ayes have it, 6-1.
Who said no?
Mayor?
Who voted no? No, but who voted no? He said it was 6-1.
Brandon.
Okay.
Mr. Roberts. Sorry.
On the DEC, we have Greg Williams in the District 2 spot, and we have Cody in District 6. Can we swap him, since Cody's actually in District 2?
Williams is in two, too, though.
Oh, is he? He
Yes.
lives in 2? Oh, never mind. I thought he lived in a different district, so let's try to get them matched up to where they actually live.
Yeah, once we get everything, finalized with our map, and we have,
That's going to be a few years. I mean, the transition.
Well, the next election will be 24. So let's say in 24, I'd like to start getting us to where we have the 4, big districts, that we have somebody from each of those locations, you know what I mean? Geographical districts, and then the other 3 could be from anywhere. But I'd like to start firming it back up, in 24, so next year. So, yeah, so let's start thinking that through, and let's clean it up, EDC and P&Z. All right, so let's go ahead and go into executive session. We're gonna go to, item number 12. City council will meet in executive session as authorized by the Texas Government Code, section 551.071, consultation with attorney, and Texas Government Code, section 551.087, economic development, to discuss the following items. Economic development update code, B, discussion regarding city-initiated downtown legislative rezone that became effective March 28, 2023, and possible rezoning of some properties. Time is now 8:44.
Heinz family?
Open session, the time is 9:09. No action taken. All right, next up is 11E. Discussion action regarding the preliminary plat for FM 78, the John subdivision. Ms. Huerta.
The FM John subdivision is located on FM 78 between Shady Meadows Lane and Buffalo Place. The land is currently undeveloped with one single homestead and 2 detached covered porches. Three of the proposed lots will be on the north side of the property. Lots 1, 2, and 3 will be 1.58, 1.34, and 135 acres respectively. Lot 4 will be 8.7 acres and accessible by a 40-foot wide irrevocable ingress-egress easement between lots 1 and 2. The developer is proposing a restaurant on lot 1 and a low-density apartment complex on lot 4, which they will need to apply for a zone change and get it approved. Currently, there are no developments proposed for lots 2 and 3. Staff and city engineer have determined that the preliminary plat for FM 78 John subdivision, since the printing of the packet, they have provided the ownership information, so staff is recommending approval at this time. We will make sure that they provide the missing signature blocks by final plat.
So what was the problem at P&Z? It was missing the P&Z chairperson signature? Is that what was going on?
That was
Why did
part.
they get denied there?
That was, well, the main reason they got denied was ownership documentation that they didn't provide, but they have provided it at this time.
Okay, so they're square.
See, I'd heard this same thing about missing for Ms. Tills. Somebody had made the error of taking signature box off, so I don't know what's going on there, but
Yeah, internal issue.
yes, gotta get this taken care of.
All right, any questions for Ms. Huerta?
He's looking at condominiums.
Purchase? Somebody owns it?
At the time of plat, they don't have to provide that, so we don't have that information. That they just made that general comment.
Well,
Yes.
they would be overlooking Cibolo Creek, so, I mean, it's at the back portion. I've talked to the Johns about this. They'd asked me, well, where it is, it's next to a very blight area, so, okay.
Mhm. Yes. Mhm. Yeah. Mm.
Las Palapas. Yes. They got another one in shirts.
Yeah, so
Yes.
It's right
Yes.
before, yeah, it's right there.
Mhm. Close.
Yes. No, it's on 78, where there's already, I'll make a motion if there's no more discussion, regarding the preliminary plat for FM 78 John subdivision approval.
Do I hear a second? Okay, we'll start with Councilman Hicks.
Aye.
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 Ayes have it, 6-1. All right, moving on to 11F. Discussion action on a Green Valley Special Utility District GVSUD Subcommittee. Mayor Allen. Okay, so the reason why I put this on the agenda is because we have been looking to mitigate some of our differences with the GVSUD board, and, you know, we have had some updates from our legal counsel, recently, within the past month or so. And so we are making progress on, you know, things like that, so I can't say too much about, you know, that case, but, I've already got agreement from a couple folks, and I've already talked to some other council members that are, you know, busy with their, other subcommittees. So the plan here would be for me and Dick Hetzel and Councilman Randy Roberts to form the subcommittee and to work directly with the GVSUD Executive Committee, which includes their president, their vice president, and I believe, I forget the other position, I think it might have been secretary, yeah. Yeah, so that's our plan here, is to get together with them and, you know, talk to them about any proposed settlement and try to, you know, get that process moved along, so. Anybody have any questions about that?
My only comment would be that the District 3 or District
6.
probably just, y'all just have to get the customers in the district.
He doesn't.
I think you do.
Yeah.
That might be something that the resident point out. I'm okay with the two of them being on there, but
Yeah, I
that's
think
just something to
Hey,
consider.
more than anything, it's just
it's the relationships,
liaison.
yeah.
Just trying to promote some goodwill.
Yeah,
if we
because
can.
I already have established relationships with the majority of their council. I helped a lot with their elections and things like that. You know, over the years, I've already got great relationships with them. So we're trying to put our best foot forward and get these things settled out. Your motion?
I make a motion to put the GDSUD subcommittee with Mayor Allen, Councilman Roberts, and Councilman
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Start with Councilman Benson.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it, 7-0. Okay, moving on to 11G, presentation action for city council to consider adopting a donation from the Hines family for the preservation of Cibolo's downtown historic district. Mr. Reed.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Mr. Terry Hines is in the audience, and if you want him to say a few words, I think he tells the story better about this buggy than I do. I'm going to just speak concisely to the request in front of you. The Hines family owns a rare piece of Cibolo history. As Mr. Terry Hines' information is provided in the cover sheet, and I will not recount all of that in here, but it's in there for you. This is a 4-seater buggy, or surrey, once owned and used by a local Cibolo doctor. The cover sheet provides more info about the history of this buggy and the very interesting story behind it. The Hines family is asking the city if it would consider a long-term museum-type loan. The Hines family would ask that the city provide an enclosed, preferably climate-controlled environment for permanent display. If at the time in the distant future, representatives of the city decide they no longer desire to be caretakers of this surrey and its story, the Hines family would request to have the first right of refusal to take full, unencumbered ownership of the surrey once more. Tonight, we're not asking you to make that decision. We're definitely asking you, staff is asking you, do you want us to explore this? We could include the history committee to look into this. Now, financial impact, I usually don't read this under standard things, but I do want to highlight that this is to be determined. There will be a cost to restore the buggy should the city want it restored. Currently, the city does not have a facility with the room to place the surrey in a climate-controlled location to be on exhibit. So again, exploration could work through these details so that council can make an informed decision. That is my presentation. Again, Mr. Terry Hines is here, and if you would like him to speak, I'll just step aside.
Thank you very much. Come on up, if you would, Mr. Hines.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council and most wonderful staff in the state of Texas. This buggy is, we're going to say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of at least 125 years old, so I hope that I can hold my paint after 125 years the same way this buggy has, this surrey has. The interesting story, y'all have read it in your packet, and so it has a great history. It's a very low mileage vehicle, very local vehicle, built in New Braunfels. It was primarily used here in Cibolo, and the last time it was parked, and let's call it the motorized version of the buggy, hastily left town. We can enhance the story if we want, well, once it goes to display, but that's really what we're after. This is a great piece of history. Yeah.
You want to tell us a story about why he left?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So, in 1901, okay, and the doctor, our local doctor, was making house calls. He was called out to a local family to make the house call to see a young boy about 5 years old, who, by the way, that young boy grew to be a grandfather here in Cibolo to a very good family. Set some very good standards and character for this family. But the young boy, the 5-year-old, had measles. They called the doctor. He came out to make a diagnosis. He said, yes, I diagnosed this young boy as having the measles. By the way, if you'll just put the 1-year-old in the bed with your 5-year-old, he'll contract the measles as well and never have to worry about him the rest of his life. So plan A worked. The baby got the measles. Plan B, however, came around and the baby died. The 5-year-old, as we discussed earlier, had a long, successful, productive life. The father of these siblings had made the comment to another member of the community here, as soon as this child is buried, I'm going home, changing my clothes, getting my gun, and I'm going to shoot that infernal doctor. So the member of our community who received that message visited with the good doctor. If you do have any value of your personal life, your own life, you'll hastily leave town. And the doctor heeded that advice with a horse and his bag, never to be seen again.
So the buggy came dislodged, the horse took off along with the doctor, right?
It was just, he didn't even take time to tie the reins. Grabbed the mare by the horse hair,
yeah,
and left town. So the buggy has been in a weatherized area. It's a cool story. It's fun. I'm not using names, but it's a great piece of history, and it's particular to Cibolo. So my wife and I feel like this is just a really neat piece of history and a piece of Cibolo's culture that wouldn't it be cool if it was on display. However, it's in really good shape. It really is. There'd be some minor repairs that need to be made, some upholstery work and things like that, but we can work out the details. But are you interested in using this as one of my ideas? This is an enhancement to the park system, the trail system. We're always continually speaking to the trail system from 35 to 10, coming down the creek, coming down through town. This is a great historical marker to bring people from the trail to come into town, see this piece of history, and we can start collecting other pieces of history to go along with this.
Well, I'll tell you, Terry, real close to your house, we got Tolly Park. We've got a house out there. It might work that we can put it in there for the time. I mean, it's enclosed.
It could. It could work
So,
there. It very well could.
But I'm just trying to think of where we could possibly put it and enclosed it. But for right now, I mean, we could definitely. There's a house there, the Tolly Park Reservoir, whatever you want to call it, and we could, and it's right around the corner from your house. So
it is, and we could be interested in it if that's the type of storage. If you're truly interested in trying to preserve the history, and let this be another piece that enhances all of Cibolo, that would certainly be an option. Right now, we do have some space in the barn that we could keep it at our place as well, but if it's in a secure place such as Andrew's house,
yes.
That's fine too. So we're just kind of fishing for the feel.
Because what they could do is take one of the garages and I guess put some type of clear acrylic, something in there, to where if you're walking the trail system, that's what it's supposed to be, is that Tolly Park is supposed to be part of the trail system, and others, and put it in one of the bays of the garage and put some type of acrylic,
something,
glass or something. It don't have to be glass, but
yeah. And Andrew built a good house. So
yes.
He really did. It was not a member of the Tully family who that the baby passed away from.
I'm not
So-
saying, I just know that we do have that, because I was sitting here trying to, when you were mentioning it, I was trying to think, where could we put it? Because we really don't have any space to put it, but when you said trail system, first thing that clicked to my mind is that
Yeah.
Tully House, so.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool piece that's gonna draw people somewhere,
Yeah.
somewhere.
That's a good idea, Joel.
So,
You know,
yeah.
if we do get that trail system going past that house, then we can have a little marker that says, you know, hey,
Historic,
you know,
yes.
cruise on
Yeah.
over here,
Yeah.
check this out, you know, and have a little plaque with
Exactly
the
right,
stories, you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Check your temperature, look at the buggy.
That'd be nice.
So,
Yeah, I like
but,
Don't mess
Yeah.
with our kids.
Well.
Try not to
yeah,
get measles when you're
yeah,
doing that.
yeah, yeah, so.
You have to
so,
go there,
yeah.
Colonel.
All right, Mrs. Cunningham?
So I know Miss Judy on the support.
Judy Wolford.
Yeah, she knows everything about everything in Cibolo. She's got quite a bit of history and items on the page. We had a whole treasure trove of things from Cibolo. And one of the things that has been brought up in the past is how do we display that and not just shove it in boxes in storage because we don't have space. So it's interesting to think about that house because now that we have a grant writer, that may be something that we could, send to our historic committee to kind of think about how would
It could
the
be.
city go about.
I don't want to interrupt you, but that building right there was built shortly after this Surrey. And that's the whole Forsage building in New Braunfels. That property was where that buggy was built. Before that, brick building was there, it was some of the whatever type of facility they had. But that's the actual property the buggy came from in New Braunfels, Texas, so, yeah.
I'd like to see if we could get the historic committee to kind of start looking into that option for it. We actually have one of our history committee members who is actually on the museum, putting the museum together right now in Hayes County. So she's got experience with that. And I would hate to miss out on the free
Free funds.
information and
Yep.
the free talent.
Yeah, so there's going to be some expense, you know, if you want to, if that's the desire is to make the buggy look right and proper, there could be some expense involved. There's one small place on a floorboard, whatever it would take to get the roof to open back up. It's a leather roof that covers both seats, and in case you didn't, you know.
Well, the whole.
You'll be able to sleep tonight knowing the difference between a buggy and a Surrey. A buggy has one bench, 1 or 2 people. A Surrey has 2 benches, 4 people or more.
Little House on the Prairie.
Little House on the Prairie. Or Sophienberg Museum. Yeah.
Just a side note, I don't know if you know this, but I got permission from my son and one of his friends to go use their pebble detector on the old Cashville property.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Finding nails and
Yeah.
there's nothing cool, but
About 100 million square nails over there. Yeah.
they had a real
Yeah.
fun adventure, and that's where this has been.
So it was. I don't know at this time where the doctor officed from. I would assume one of these homes downtown, but this was in 1901 when when the doctor decided he didn't need the Surrey any longer, and he only needed a trail to get out of town. But that's 122 years. I'm going to estimate the buggy, the Surrey was built in 1890-ish. Yeah, we're starting to show a wrinkle or two. But the paint, all the patina, all that stuff, I would be careful about what kind of restoration you would want to do, other than just a general repair to keep it healthy.
I like the patina.
I
Yeah.
think even just leaving it as is and protecting it, just to have it show. Thank you.
Yeah, protect
Yeah,
it from the
yeah,
elements.
yeah.
I mean, that's
We
what
get a
do.
mark now and then, so, yeah.
It's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Let's see, do we have a motion on this one, or?
It's just direction, I think.
So we're
or
gonna
is
give it
it
to the
action?
historical committee, right, and have them will help us?
That would be what I would recommend, to kind of get them to give us the direction. We've got a lot of staff.
Work
that
with them and the Parks Department.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, would staff have to make the recommendation or the direction about
Well, we're
how to
giving
house it?
staff direction to,
Yeah,
So I hear the direction is to work with the historical committee. Did you say the Parks
the
Committee?
parks because of Tolly Park.
Okay.
I
All right.
mean, that's where I would display it, because I can't think of anywhere else we're gonna display it unless we're gonna put it in our new Public Works building. Because we got room over there, but I don't think that'd work.
No.
It'd be cool if we owned that building with the gas pumps right there and had like a little, museum type of thing in the front, room.
But that's why I say work with the parks because of the Tolly Road, or the Tolly House.
So we'll work with the historical committee just on history aspect of this with the Surrey, not a buggy. Thank you. We'll work with the Parks Committee about what are their opinions of using the Tolly
Well, using one of
Park property.
Using the Tolly property, one of the bays for the garage.
And we'll come back, give us 3 months, we'll come back with their ideas and their recommendations to council. Is that fair? Is that fair, Mr. Hines?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think their lead is the history aspect of it, and how do we display this? What's the story we tell? And I heard the Parks Committee is really just the use of an existing property that we own that has a structure on
Yeah,
it.
because I don't know of anywhere else that we could display it.
And what we would do is we'd have our facility staff just give an update, what's the condition of that property, what would we have to do to make it air conditioned? I would also say that that property's been subject to vandalism because the structures are not visible from the public right of way. And we'd also want to know that it's a secure location for such an important piece of history. So we're going to do both, but yes, sir, I think if what I'm saying is what you're thinking, then that's what we're going to do. We'll be back in 3 months.
It's your timeline. Yeah, it's, we've had 125 years, so we can give it another couple of months.
Wait another 3 months, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Mr. Hines, I just want to thank you for bringing this to us and trusting us to be a good steward of this important piece of Cibolo history.
You bet, I appreciate it. I do appreciate that. We're all stewards of our history and our future, so.
Do you have anywhere in mind where you would think you would?
I've always pictured something either over here in front of the old school, over here in the City Hall area. I like the Andrews House as a temporary stay, and it might work out that that's the proper place to be. It's at the head of the trail system. But it's always associated with Cibolo, or back then Cibolo, this area. So I've pictured it being one of the attractors to bring people off the trail system into downtown, spur on a little economy, and then continue on down the trail system.
I mean, we don't have a lot of options, obviously, but we might make options.
Yeah, yeah.
Just depending on how our animal shelter turns out, we might be able to glass a spot off in there to display.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing someplace that has traffic.
Right.
And it will help attract more traffic.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
I'm thinking of something like that, where it is, if we are able to renovate that house with funding that falls out of the tax.
It happens.
For sure.
Yeah.
If we renovate that and make it kind of a living history museum, put some of the things that are Cibolo related in there. And then as the destination, if it's got that trailhead, I've got kids, they're gonna use that.
Yeah, yeah.
How hard to get, like, some sort of plumbing.
Yeah, it's already there, and we worked with Peggy on one of my wife's uncles. He had supplied us, each of the family members, with a binder, historical documentation of Cibolo, a lot of old photos of Cibolo that time up into the 20s and 30s and 40s. And then we have others in our possession that are really interesting, that if that's the desire, we can work through more photographs and work with getting them enlarged or whatever the item is. We have certain other things that are specific to Cibolo and the growth of Cibolo. I won't mention a safe from the Cibolo unincorporated bank, but there might be one of those, in somewhere in Cibolo. So, yeah, no. The only money is in the safe.
The safe, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Related, I've mentioned a few times that on the trail system, when we get it finished, I'd like to have placards or something along that trail
kind of like the Schlatter Park, you've got lots of.
But along the trail, so that
Right.
if you're taking your kids,
Yeah, it's a history
a lot
walk.
of museums now have like scavenger hunts for kids to kind of keep them engaged and learning and not just,
Yeah, not, it's hot, but it's a history, like, hey, history walk. That's
so I
all.
think it's a really great way to incorporate the history into our trail system and our park
Correct.
system. And then this sort of
Correct.
can be the
Yeah. We're just, consider ourselves very fortunate that we've been able to, that our family was not a family of scavengers, they were just a family of keepers. And so we have fewer places to keep things, but some of these things we've been able to keep are truly treasures. So, and treasures to us. So, you bet. Yeah, it's in the column of cool stuff. So, good. All right. Thank you.
Thanks again,
Thank you.
Mr. Hines, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next up is 11H, presentation, discussion, action on a telework policy. Bruce Knott.
Evening, Mayor and Council. We're coming forward tonight to talk about a proposed policy on a telework program for the city of Cibolo. And so I'm going to ask these two questions in the beginning, but these will be the two questions I'll ask you to reflect on at the end of the presentation. One, the first question is, does the council approve the telework concept as outlined in the policy? And the second question would be, does the council have additional input on the guidance outlined in the policy? Quick agenda, just the general guidelines, the eligibility, employee and supervisor responsibilities, and then a telework agreement that the employees would have to sign. We're bringing this forward because this is a council strategic plan item. It's 5.4.7, which is explore telecommuting and flex work policy. So just the general guidelines is we will use a formal telework framework to ensure transparency, preserving public trust, and provide guidance for assessing the appropriateness of the work arrangement. And our goal is to help create a flexible work arrangement that will help in recruiting and retention of employees in jobs who can accomplish their work effectively while providing seamless service without disruption to city services. Our guidelines were eligible employees would be authorized to telework up to 2 days per week. That's a conversation between them and their department head. Telework does not change the duties, obligations, responsibilities, or terms and conditions of city employment. And telework will only be approved if it maintains or improves existing customer service levels. Productivity can be validated, and it does not negatively impact the city's ability to serve our community. A telework employee must be available, accessible, and perform work during normal work hours. And employees may not engage in activities that would not be permitted at the regular work site. So they can't have a daycare in their home. They can't work a second job. It would be the same as they're in their office. And the telework policy and program is intended to be cost neutral. By that we mean we're not buying furniture for people's house. If they need a certain type of chair because they have back problems, that's between them and their own bank account. It's not something the city would provide. So position eligibility is obviously going to be a player here. So things we'd look at are what are the job duties, the nature of work, access to position-specific software packages, efficiency of work processes, effectiveness of existing project teams, the fact that productivity of work can be validated, the operational needs of the city, and then what would be the impact on our customer service. And from an employee standpoint, we would look at employees who have demonstrated dependability and responsibility, effective and timely communication with supervisors, coworkers, and clients, the ability to work independently with a high level of skill and knowledge of the job, a consistently high rate of productivity, and the ability to prioritize work effectively through organizational and time management skills. They would also need to establish and maintain a workspace at their alternate work location, ensure that the alternate work location is conducive to working. Again, they would have to adhere to and be available during the employee's regular scheduled work hours and observe and adhere to city's practices for overtime. Then lastly, they need to report to the office on scheduled telework days as directed by the department head. By that we mean if someone's scheduled to work from home on Thursday, but their supervisor says Thursday morning, I need you to come to work, they need to be available to come into the office at any given moment. And then using city-owned hardware, software, and internet, email, and other forms of city-owned communication media in a manner consistent with the policies that we already have in place. We need to ensure that dependent care and other personal responsibilities do not adversely affect an employee's normal work duties or professionalism, and they need to adhere to program-specific guidelines and requirements to protect confidential or secure information. So our telework agreement that we drafted that's in the policy is the employee has to submit it and have it sent to their department head and supervisor for review. We reserve the right to cancel that agreement at any time that we deem it's not proper for the employee or for the type of work they're doing. Travel time to and from the employee's alternate work location to the office is not considered work time and is not compensable. So if someone gets called in, then we expect that time that they would be driving in the office is not compensable time, just as it isn't today. Telework employees are compensated the same as they would be when they work from the office. The alternate work location is an extension of the department's workspace only when it's used for work, so they can use that workspace any way they want after hours during the day. We would expect that to be work-related environment. And then all existing workplace health and safety rules, as well as employment laws, rules, and policies apply with the same force and effect and in the same manner to employees while teleworking as it would be when they're reporting to the office. So I know I went through that really quick. I'm guessing there's a lot of questions, so I think this is a great opportunity for me to just turn it over to council and answer any questions that you might have.
I'm gonna come out and say I am absolutely thrilled that you're looking into this. I've been remote, on a hybrid schedule for the last 2 years. First year with COVID, everyone was remote all the time. So when we started going back to office, being remote has been a game changer. I also work for city government, so I know what it's like. Don't get paid very well. There's a lot of things that you miss out on whether you in the public sector versus the private sector.
Okay, well, so I reviewed this telework policy with Bruce and Mr. Reed about a week ago, and, you know, we were able to kind of shape it, mold it, and, you know, I was asked for feedback, and I gave my feedback. And I have a work situation similar to Councilwoman Cunningham's. I work in IT, and back in March of 2020, my office, along with most, you know, IT shops and even corporate gigs, were forced to work from home remotely. And so I feel that it makes sense for certain job titles and certain areas to be able to have that flexibility. Obviously, if your job is to fill potholes, you can't fill potholes from home, obviously. So we're not talking about those job roles. But I feel that certain professionals that work within the city of Cibolo, and I won't call out specific job titles because I don't think that would be fair for me to say things like that. But I do support this, and I feel that people do actually work harder and longer when they are working from home because they have the comfort of their own home. And oftentimes I'll get wrapped up in a project and I'll just be busy working and time flies and I'll just realize, hey, it's 3 o'clock. I didn't even take a lunch today. You know, I just sat there at my desk and blazed right through. I didn't even notice when 12 o'clock came around. And so oftentimes I work more, you know, when I'm working from home because there's no commute. You know, when I was working at the office, I would, you know, at 11:30, I would get up and leave the building, and I would go somewhere for lunch, you know, and then come back, and you know, and then I would always, you know, be looking to leave at a certain time where I could beat the traffic or whatnot. So I think that this does help certain people become more productive, and so I think this is a good thing for us to explore. And at least give it a try. You know, if we find out that it's a failure, I mean, this isn't set in stone. I mean, if it doesn't work out for certain people, or it just doesn't work out, period, we can always change it. But I think this is something we should explore. Anyone else have any comments?
I've got a couple. Oh, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Mahoney was
Go ahead,
asking
Mr. Mahoney.
first.
Go ahead.
No, please.
Well, a couple of questions, and if you don't mind, Ms. Cunningham, I'm gonna direct the question to you. Is this form pretty much parallel to the forms you had in your situation?
It is very similar. We also fill out one of these, it also ties to our annual performance evaluation. And so if you are down to, at my work with the 4-point system, and one is not achieving zero needs expectations, or is exceeds expectations or like demonstrates exceptional self-study. But if you get a two or above, then you're allowed to continue on. It is a constant with my current team, who is remote 3 days a week. it's really a productivity of it. You can tell when it's not working. You can tell when someone is not there.
Sounds great. I wish I had, there was about 6 years of my working career and I could have done it.
It's
4 days a week.
Yeah, so we've talked about being nice for the employee, and I've done some remote work, and I probably meet all the wrong categories of remote work. I work too hard, I don't take breaks, I don't do all the things that I'm supposed to do on the job. I do have less distractions, there's nobody standing around talking to you about mindless things. But the data is not clear. I spent Saturday looking at data, trying to figure out what do the studies actually show. They show happier employees, and some of those are happier employees who don't do anything and aren't held accountable. Some of those employees are like Katie, who's obviously works hard, and the mayor, they work hard, they get their job done, and that's fine. I think the difference for me is, and Ms. Cunningham, you're in contracts, right? You're a contract team. The problem I'm having is that, okay, so let's say we've got people in, I don't even want to name departments. I'm like the mayor. I don't want to name departments, but let's say you got people in departments that are on their work. Today's somebody's work day from home, and then somebody else calls in sick, right? And now we've got 2 people not here to do things that actually need to be done at the city. And then the phone call goes, because the policy says, right, you have to come in, and they go, oh, I would, but darn it, my kid's sick today. I would have taken a sick day except that. And now you're just kind of stuck, right? Now you might have been down those 2 people anyway if in case this was the fact, but you're not planning for 2 people to not be showing up at the same time on the same day. And now you're scrambling, right? That could happen with both people being sick, but you've injected part of the problem because now you're waiting on somebody to do customer service that is 45 minutes away, and the doors are open. And so, I mean, you'd have to take a really, really good look at who is involved in this kind of stuff, when a Teams meeting is appropriate and when it's really we got to have a meeting, and then it's all in the end comes down to accountability. And my problem with the accountability piece is I'm struggling with accountability in the organization. So that's where I'm at. Like I get this can be very beneficial to employees. I'm just not sure it's that beneficial to the organization. And I think if I looked at about 10 or 12 different studies, because I'm a geek, there is no real overwhelming to the organization this is beneficial. Ms. Cunningham has said people work harder and they're more productive, but the studies don't bear out it's that much more beneficial, or even if it is beneficial. In some cases that I read, they were more concerned about this overworking, these people that are just locking themselves away and working themselves to death because they don't know how to turn off the off switch and go home. And so I'm not convinced. I do it some of my own, so it's not like I've not done this, but my wife has to tell me, turn it off, your shift's over, right? I don't know that that's healthy either. So I'm not, this is a customer service organization. We're about the people of Cibolo and about their business, and the day that we can't meet those needs because we got telework going on, that's a tough explanation. It really is. So
this has worked for cities everywhere. This is working for corporations everywhere. And my place of work was very hesitant to go toward this. COVID forced it on us. And they found through that, and when I say hesitant, they flat out refused for years, even though we had the capability to do it. With COVID, they found that people were actually more productive. We
I've lived with the remote situation before, and the first thing that strikes me is that the supervisor is immensely important. And we've had problems here before on supervisors not supervising too well. That's a given fact. And that gets back into the definition of what you're really supposed to be doing. And the second area, the types of positions that I ran, I wound up receiving computers, portable computers, not personal computers, because they wanted to restrict access to anything other than where I was supposed to go with the device. So that means that if you've got a dozen different employees, that's going to be another dozen different laptops that you've got to purchase, not to mention the upgrades on the software and that sort of thing. You're also going to increase time for the IT folks because they've got to monitor and make sure you're not out dilly-dallying somewhere. In addition to that, then the question comes up, well, who's going to pay for the communication? In other words, some people don't have communication at home. Now, right now, we've got certain folks that have got telephones. They're paid for by the city. So is the city going to pay for telecommunications? No, I understand that, but it's one of these kind of things that can come up with someone that really wants it this way. And you've also got to have your IT folks be able to configure the machines the way that you need them to where they can only make sure that nobody else can get into that personal information. Because HIPAA, PII, the rest of that stuff, people can go to jail for that. I've helped, you know. So that's my 2 cents on that end.
Mr. Hicks.
Well, I'm not for it. I'll just tell you straight up. I might work great for you, Katie. You might be the special one that it works for. But, you know, I look at, there's more than just, I mean, firefighters, they can't work from home. Okay? Mentioned pothole, you know, you can't fix potholes from home. I mean, how is that? How are we looking across the board for all employees? That's how I look at this. If it can't benefit all employees, then it's not really right. But I understand that, but just as Colonel Hetzel said, it's going to cost us money because they're going to have to go in there. They're going to have a laptop. We got to make sure it's secure. I mean, it's money. And I'm sorry, but I got the floor. Please give me that opportunity, Ms. Cunningham. We've got to look out for the citizens of Cibolo. We're their stewards of their money. They pay the taxes. I just don't feel that it's right if not everybody can do the work from home. It's just, I'm against it. That's it.
I totally understand that. We also have staff members, police members who get a vehicle. Not everyone gets a vehicle. We have people who get cell phone stipends. Not everyone gets a cell phone stipend. I mean, not every position in any organization, unless everyone is the exact same role, is going to have the same benefits throughout. It's just not. As for the IT, I know that we budget for computers every year, and it's just simply that knowledge as well as taking the time to have to train someone up to that level. I get that it's a customer service. I've worked in city government for forever. I don't even know anymore. More than 10 years. It is possible to do this and do this well. And I think assuming that our staff is just flat out not going to work because they did the work, they did a ton of work is, I don't think that's a very fair assumption. I know that we've all been frustrated with things that have happened, and we've all of us are guilty of pointing fingers at staff members or at things that have happened, and maybe some of it was correct, maybe some of it wasn't. But putting that blanket statement on the entire telework policy because maybe one time something happened. As a supervisor, it's accountability on that supervisor as well. You should be supervising your staff, whether they're in office or not. You should know exactly what your staff members are working on. You should know their percentage complete on each of their projects. I manage 105 contracts over my team members. I know exactly what every single status, every single one of those contracts is because I meet with my team members and I get a status update. At least twice a week I'll come in. So as a supervisor, you have to learn to manage your team. Use a different way to manage because you don't see everyone face to face every day. But I don't think that it should be a reason to flat out say no.
Sure, no, it's okay. No, I agree with Ms. Katie Cunningham. I feel like it's a competing factor just as well, and not just job retention, but as our city is run and we add more city staff, as we continue to solicit more job openings, that this is something that people are actually looking for, teleworking. And I feel like many corporations, many companies are moving in this direction too as a competing workforce. So I completely agree. I feel that when people are given this opportunity, they don't necessarily want to compromise that opportunity. If not holding on to it, I feel like the staff will work better together just as well in being good stewards of our city. So I think this is a positive direction as our city is run, as we also seek to increase staff, just to promote our city, that we're also doing this.
Thank you very much. Any other commentary, Randy?
Just a quick one. So, and I agree, okay, I agree that it is a productive thing and it is an employee retention benefit for sure. Where I struggle with is kind of like Councilman Benson here with what positions, don't have to name them, but a number, just give me a number of how many would even qualify, because we're a customer service-based organization. I mean, and that means being accessible to a citizen if they come through the front door. And if you're home in your pajamas working, that's not accessible. And it's not like we have hundreds of employees.
That's right. And I agree with that, and I think there's a couple things I'd like to answer, and I appreciate everybody's comment. One, I would say that our customer-facing departments, so I will break the rule and mention names, right?
Okay.
So I think that if you're an office worker working in utility billing, that's a more difficult position for us to allow that to happen very often. Doesn't mean that we wouldn't allow it to happen. I think that would be a more restrictive position. If you work in IT, we brought that up, I think that our guys they remote into our computers now, they just do it from a different building. So I think that part of that is looking at those positions. I don't know if I can give you a fair number, but I think that, you know, we don't have a lot of people, and we do need more people, so I don't know that any department head's gonna say, I'm okay with less productivity. I think that they're gonna want that accountability there. Colonel Hetzel, I believe in everything you said, and Mr. Benson, you said the same thing. I think training our supervisors, which you've been in our building a lot, we have spent a lot of time over the last year training supervisors on how to do these things. We've managed people off the team who are not performing, and we brought superstars on the team. I think that just behooves us as we're getting better. We did an employee engagement survey, which we will come forward in the next month or so to show the new results, and they went sky high from last year. We're in a very engaged workforce. We're going to have a leadership briefing from Gallup in a couple weeks, but I will tell you, talking to their leadership team, they said, we're just amazed at the improvement you made. Engagement nationally went down. We went up 7 or 9%, and it went down nationally. So I think we're doing the right things. The positions that would work remotely have laptops today. I mean, that's not a new thing for us. we've had to do this. I think many people work remotely now, but it's nights and weekends. I mean, sometimes your job just demands, I got to go home at a certain time and I got to take care of my family, and then I might be fat fingering a keyboard for an hour, or if Mr. Reed needs something on a Saturday, I've got my laptop and I'm performing to help out the cause. I do agree with the burnout. I think that's a big issue that I worry about. I don't want people, if I have a team member who says, well, I get up at 7, so I'm going to work from 7. I normally don't get home till 6. I'm going to work till 6. We're going to know that. I think those accountability things are put in place. I know this in my heart. If my team's not performing and I'm not holding them accountable, there will be someone else up here giving a briefing next time, because Mr. Reed's tolerance on that is 0 tolerance. We meet constantly with our teams. While I'm in the same building, most of that is via text, email, Teams. People don't get up and go visit. I mean, you just get these things. So I think those things are in place, and I understand your concern. I think the point the mayor made of, if it doesn't work, we rescind this immediately. But I know from my perspective, I need more team members, and I can't have people less productive. And so I would pull the plug pretty quick.
If I could add one thing, if council was to adopt this policy at a future meeting, you could also direct us to come back in 6 months with a report. How frequently is it being used? In what departments? How is it working? At any point, you can pull back the policy. We'll be fully transparent on its use and its effectiveness to improve and maintain productivity.
Do I hear a vote on this or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve plan B. I second the motion.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. We're going to start with Councilman Benson.
No.
Nay.
Aye. Aye.
No.
No.
Nays have it. 4 to 2. Or 4 to 2.
40.
Can we bring this back at a later time? Maybe address some of the issues?
It's up to council.
Okay, then I would like to bring this back later and address some of the concerns that were brought up. I think we should establish a very basic service. And in a climate where we've seen firsthand how hard it is to hire people, putting another tool in our tool belt that we know we're going to measure, avoiding that is just silly. For just because maybe people who voted against it have never worked remotely. We don't know what remote work is like. Don't know that you can be productive remotely. I'm pretty frustrated by that, but I would like to revisit this in the future, maybe with let's approve this for 6 months and these specific departments try it out. Or for 3 months, we'll try it out, or have some time metrics to measure the performance. I think
Agreed. Okay, so let's move on. We got 2 more, items, and then the rest is pretty much wrap-up items. So let's get on to 11I, discussion of insurance service organization, ISO maps. Chief Francoso.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I was briefed that there were some questions in regards to ISO. So if anybody has any questions, the presentation that I did, I think about a month ago, was posted again. If you have any questions in regards to the map or anything like that, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.
Sure, my question is, if you don't mind, Mayor, you good? I guess so. My question is, we presented the map, and then we just said, here's the map. So what I'd like to know is, what are we going to do about the map? And the discussion is more about, okay, we've got 3X basically everywhere south of 78. And I would like to know, what's the plan? How are we going to address this? It's been 3X since 2015. It shows up 2023 is 3X. It seems like in that 8 years, we should have done something. And so as a council, we had kind of this in the budget discussion the other night, but we're going to have to, I don't think it's appropriate to just sit and look at this ISO map and go, yep, still 3X. I don't think that's appropriate. So maybe they're not questions for you, Chief, but there's certainly we need to discuss as a council what directions we need to start looking at to get fire services and our ISO rating back to a respectable level so that we don't look at how everything south of the 78 and say, sorry, you're out of luck. So that's why, one of the reasons we want to bring it back, and I know the other reason is Ms. Sanchez was her first night, and I think it went by pretty quick, and she had some additional comments that weren't able to get out, so.
So if I can address one thing is that since the last meeting that I spoke about the ISO rating, I have reached out to ISO to make a request to do a reevaluation of the city. I do have a document here that I do want to pass out to y'all. So if you look at the document that we got from the Texas Department of Insurance, excuse me, it gives when the evaluation was done, and it breaks it down, the summary of assigned credits. So right off the bat, emergency communications, we were assigned 7.94. The max we could get was 10 points. Water supply, we were scored 35.74. The max score we could get was 40. Fire department, score that we were assigned was 30.98. The max we could get was 50. In the Texas training, we got 0.05. The maximum we could have got was 3.26. The community risk reduction, we got a 3.51. The max you could get was 5.0. And then the Texas amendment, that's a credit for compressed air foam. We don't have any of that at that time. We do have some now, and we could have got credit for that. And it gives, right below that, it gives you the percentages and where you would be at on the ISO rating. If you go to the second page, that breaks it down on the points, the max points, for example, emergency communications was the 10. Under emergency communication, that breaks it down on where your points are gathered from.
So this wasn't taken until 2016. That seems like a long time ago.
Yes.
Why can't we just do this again?
Well, I reached out to ISO. I sent out 2 emails. I'm waiting for them to set up a date so we can sit down and, because there's going to be a lot of legwork in regards of emergency communications to see, make sure that we have all our ducks in a row, because I want to be prepared when they come in, that we have all of our documents. In regards to the fire department, on that first page, and it's on the second page as well, a total points of 50 is what we could get, and we scored a 30.98. And if you look at the different items there, like we can get 6 points for engine companies, in-service pumpers, reserve pumpers. We have 3 stations with only 1 reserve pumper. Pump capacity.
Well, that was going to be my question, pump capacity. Once we get down south, I mean, once we get down south, everything that's on your tank is what you've got to be able to use,
The pump capacity is the pump capacity of the apparatus itself, not the water system. That's further down on the next page. So even ladder trucks, having a ladder truck and having a reserve ladder truck, and then having the spacing of the ladder trucks that are throughout the city. Personnel, if you look at that on that third page, personnel is 15 points. That's a big number. Training is 9 points.
So if you took it today, you would probably do a lot better.
Yes, correct.
So get prepared for it, we'll do it again.
Yes. In regards to the south, I know that's a concern of the infrastructure of the water. That's Green Valley SUD. One of the questions that was asked is about the fire flow, even where fire station number 4 is. I have documents here from Green Valley SUD, from Fire Protection Consultant Group, a third party. They did a flow test, and we have a flow rate of 2,260 gallons per minute, and that's well above the minimum. 2,260 gallons per minute.
And where's that one at?
That one is at the 1,000 block of Bolton Road.
So that's real close to where our fire station will be.
Correct.
However, you go down Stolte, you get those black fire hydrants. You go down.
So I do have fire flows from Hakerville and Lower Seguin Road.
Okay.
On that intersection there, and there are 1,928 gallons per minute. So that exceeds the minimum as well.
But they just put in that line. That's a
Correct.
brand new line.
And that's
so-
one thing that I do have my fire marshal working with Green Valley SUD to see what lines are in the ground, and if they're capable of putting in hydrants, try to figure out why hydrants weren't in place. And I think that's a communication and a work together in regards of if that water line is capable of supplying hydrants, what can we do as a joint venture together, or leave it all up to Green Valley SUD, or a joint venture with the city to put fire hydrants every 1,000 feet. And if you look at the considerations after the first page for our pointing system, it details in there what they are looking for. And right now, our challenge is a fire station down there with equipment and bodies, along with fire hydrants. So I will do a follow-up with ISO to see when the rep will be able to come down, so we can start that process. Because yes, 2016 has been a long time. Will it help us out in our rating? I think it will, but will it be a drastic from a 3X down to a 3? We don't know. But there's a lot of information that we're going to have to gather to make sure that we're prepared for them when they come in and do the evaluation. The pumping capability of the vehicles that you're bringing, that's what you need. That's what you need to be able to that you can pump at.
Like the truck, whenever
Like
the
the
truck
trucks,
shows up,
the capability of the trucks.
the truck's got the capability of
capability to
pumping
pump
out
that.
3,500 gallons.
I guess because when I read it, it said to include inspection and flow testing of hydrants. And then I guess alternate water supply operations and careful evaluation of the balance of available water compared. I don't know any of this, so I just need it there.
And that's one thing with the, because when I was talking to him as well, I asked him, is there a dumbed down ISO for dummies? You know, just so we can, and that's mainly for me, just so we can understand, so I can try to explain it to y'all. And it's so convoluted on how they determine how many points this gets compared to even down to the flushing of the hydrants. We have to, our Public Works has to document that to make sure that they flow those hydrants and they're at reaching their capability of discharging water, and all that documentation as well, along with dispatch, along with our training hours in the type of our response calls as well. So it's not just water. It's not just, it's a combination of everything. And that's why I felt it was very important to add that second sheet so you can see exactly
appreciate that.
where we're lacking. So in the data, and that's another challenge that we're having, is that it's not our water system, it's Green Valley's SUD, and to try to get some of the data and the main sizes, it's challenging. But I can honestly say that our city water system is pretty comparable to what's out there, and the Green Valley SUD as well. We have yet to come across a hydrant where we actually hooked up and had an issue that it's not supplying enough water.
Well,
So-
you said, you're saying that, but I recall an instance on Tolly Road, Cibolo Tolly. Y'all passed a fire hydrant and had to go down to the very end to Tolly Road because that fire hydrant that was on Cibolo Tolly, you knew it wasn't sufficient. I know that that's not I know that's not on you. That's Green Valley SUD. But these are the things that we've got to, we've got 3 guys that are going to go negotiate. Well, I need y'all to go and negotiate to make sure that we've got fire suppression for all of our city.
Same thing when he mentioned, you know, about going in on it together and do a fire hydrant every 1,000 feet or something like that, you know, where it makes sense. I mean, where there's actually.
But there was a house that burnt down at the top of
Correct,
Cibolo
and
Tolly
if
because
I-
y'all had to literally pass that fire hydrant. It's the little black one, not much bigger than the top
Correct.
of this cup.
It was a 2.5 inch
Yeah.
discharge.
Right.
And the first unit that did arrive there was a Schertz unit. They did not know that hydrant was, that little 2.5 inch discharge was there.
But would it have had the pressure you needed to
Yes,
put it
and matter of fact, I shared a photo with Mr. Reed. We went out there around the same time when we made another visit at another property right down the road. They had, that hydrant is now a full hydrant. The water main meet the capabilities of it. They just didn't upgrade the discharge. So if you go out there right now, there is a fire hydrant. It does meet the main size to support a fire hydrant.
Okay. I mean, I just know that there's instances because I'm one of those, a firm traveler of District 7, District 2. I travel all of
Yes.
the south, and I see a lot of times where it's a silver and it's or a black.
Yeah.
But it's not the bigger red one. So I'm just saying that that's something that we need to look at. I'm glad you're bringing that up.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify, because I know we're running out of time. Chief, I had overheard that you said that there were some challenges in getting a lot of the data, flow data.
Yes.
When was the last time you requested the information, like to include the mapping and the flow data, and how was it requested?
I personally haven't requested, but I do know through challenges from our Public Works Director has also tried, and I know this last go-around when we were was brought up about the property on Station, where Station 4 was going, my fire marshal reached out and asked for the flow data, and they gave it to him. And like I said, they were very hesitant on giving the main size. It does have some stuff on there. I'll be free we can give it to Ms. Simmons, we can pass this out if you want to look at that.
So just to clarify, you don't have complete data for like all the hydrants and the water lines from
Green Valley SUD, correct.
Green Valley SUD?
Yes.
Is that something that we can request to obtain? That's the problem you're having?
Yes, is that not, staff has attempted to make requests, and it just,
But see, we can't just go out there, okay, well, it's in the city. Let's test it. We can't do that because it's their water line. So.
Ms. Sanchez-Stevens, I want to just say, we need to make that official request of Green Valley SUD before we say they won't share it or they will. We'll make that official request. Yeah.
All right, so we need to probably wrap this one up, but you can go ahead and ask a question. But on this one, you know, it kind of seems like we're beating a dead horse. I mean, you know, this is a 2016 document. You've already said you're gonna, you know, tidy the ship and then have them come back out and retest. Good deal. All right.
Correct.
Mr. Mahoney.
Just gonna say, I attended CBSU's board meeting, unofficially, as a citizen, 2 days ago, and somebody in their group told their board, like,
please start making me lists of stuff that you want us to, just shoot them to me, actually, just shoot me emails, and I'll make a list.
Okay.
Anybody's got emails you want me to talk to the subcommittee about, just shoot me emails. That's the point. All right, so we go with this one?
Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Very much. All right, on to the last item that might carry discussion. Discussion on city charter section 4.04, city attorney item 2A, B, and C. Councilman Benson.
Yeah, so we've had a couple of discussions in our subcommittee. What the heck's that name? Ordinance subcommittee. So it got me into the charter a little bit and got me thinking about some things. And then there's a couple of things that have occurred that that I've put a little thought to, and I just want to get a consensus here on what we need to look at. So in 4.04, it describes the city attorney's role. And so the first thing on 2A, which is a little bit of a conundrum, and I think we need to at least be thinking about it. I don't think we need to do anything today, but we need to start thinking about this. And mostly because the conversations shouldn't be held in this forum, but I want you to think back at times recently where we've had some discussions where, quite honestly, and Mr. Garza may disagree, but I think if we unpeel the onion in closed session, we could see maybe where I'm coming from. That the A says serve as a legal advisor to the city council and city manager. And the question really becomes, there are times where the council's role in the situation may actually be in conflict with what the city manager's role in the situation is. So if you think back at some events, maybe those things were not in harmony or they were in conflict. And that places the city attorney in a dilemma of who does he represent and how does he need to rule? So, or recuse or whatever. I know Mr. Hicks and I, not too long ago, were placed in a situation where we were basically in no man's land, right? So I've been thinking about this, and we brought it up one night in the subcommittee because the discussion came, and apparently that's now been removed from the Muni Code, or not out of the Muni Code, but it was vacated some time ago.
Correct. That provision in the correct. That provision was taken out.
So there was it's still in the Muni Code. You can go look at it, but apparently it was removed. We just didn't get it actually out of the Muni Code that said if you wanted to talk to the city attorney, you had to go through the city manager, which, since both of them are employees of this body, it seemed kind of odd that I had to talk to one to get to the other. And so that was apparently removed a couple of years ago. It was an oversight, or they changed their mind or whatever. But it brings up this same kind of thing where, especially in 2A, where we could have our city attorney in a position where he's got maybe the advice for one is not the same advice for the other. Does that make sense? It puts him in a bit of a conflict. So I ran this by a couple of attorneys that I know, just general broad, no information, just, hey, could you imagine a time? And they said, yeah, that's a conflict. Because if you're trying to do X and the city has done Y, the city attorney can't represent both people because there's really, it can't be done. So again, Frank may disagree, but I think we need to look at this because I think I could think of an event, and I wish I could share it, but we could talk about it in closed session if you want. Next time we want to bring it back and talk about it in executive session, where clearly some advice was heeded over other advice or questions, and it leaves us in a bit of a bind. And so I would like to consider thinking of a way to relieve Mr. Garza of these conflicts. Whether that is, there's a provision down below, it's talking about a special attorney or attorney special counsel. I don't know what we look at. But I think there's times when when we're putting the attorney in a box, and maybe it feels like, to me at least, there's some conflicts there that are not readily resolvable, and we need to look at that, because I think that'll provide better outcomes for everybody. It'll keep the city attorney focused on like part 2 or part B and part C and some of these things without getting into these, you know, conflicts.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time following without these specific examples.
Well, let's
So,
bring it back.
Yeah,
But-
that's what I was about to say.
Well,
Let's
can I-
bring this back in executive session in the next council meeting.
Mayor, may I say something, though?
Please.
The charter provision in the Cibolo City Charter is very common, and you'll find in most city charters, where the city attorney represents the council and the city manager. I have many instances in my 35 years assisted a city council in terminating a city manager, because the council as a whole, the policy-making body, is the client. Now, the entity, the city of Cibolo, is my client. And in that, there are different aspects. The council develops the policy for the entity. In a council manager form of government, it is the city manager who implements that policy of the council. In my 35 years, I have seen instances where the manager goes contrary to the policy set by the city council. That manager usually is not there long after those situations. You are correct. There are times where I may get direction, and this occurs where I get direction from one side of council and another side of council wants something totally different. In those instances, I would go to the council in executive session and say, I've gotten direction this way, I've gotten direction this way. You as a whole need to tell me which way I should provide the guidance. If there is a conflict, it is my responsibility under my state bar code to notify the client of that conflict and to see how it should be resolved by the client. I don't represent any city that doesn't have this potential. But again, it always goes back that I represent the entity as a whole. Council sets that policy for that entity, and it is the manager and the staff that implements that policy. There will be times there's a conflict, and that is my duty and responsibility to go back to the council to, when that conflict arises, to have it resolved.
So basically, this is just the nature of the beast. It's like this with all cities.
Well, maybe, but to your point, and I'm not an attorney, didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. When we go back in 2 weeks and have this discussion, and I lay out some specific things that I think were conflicts.
No, we can still do that, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we can at least have that conversation. I don't want to do that here because that'll be a real big problem, right?
Gotcha.
But I think that those need to be discussed so you can have more clarity on what I'm trying to say, because it may not be done anywhere else. But the 2 or 3 people have nothing to do with city law. When I was discussing some of these kinds of issues, like, well, that's a conflict. You can't be the lawyer for both, right? And I'll give you the specifics. They're coming.
Okay.
But, and I should have requested us just be in closed session. I apologize for that. I knew that it was going to be difficult to have this without actual examples. But I think if you think back in your mind, there's probably times you can say, well, maybe I know what he's talking about. So anyway, if we could just move this, Ms. Peggy, to executive session next first meeting in July and just have this discussion.
All right.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, 11K, discussion from council members that have attended seminars, events, or meetings.
I'll make mine short, sweet. Attended the legislative update, and state wasn't exactly beneficial to the cities. I'll just have to say that. The one bill that I helped start with the pump and haul, that did pass. So there are limits on that. 6 months and no renewal. So if we've got any of these homes out here that decide to come in and say we don't have sewer, but can we go vertical, yeah, 6 months, and then nothing, so. Well, John Campbell helped with that, but me working with his staff, we got that passed. Yeah, he authored it for me, yes, so. That's all I've got, thank you.
Anyone else?
So, we had our ordinance subcommittee today, there will be an ordinance, attended the Old Town Alliance meeting today with some of the downtown business owners, and, I think it's a positive step in the right direction, and we put in that communication, and, dealing with some of those issues that are there. We had the first of the HOA, series,
Knowledge
knowledge series, the HOA knowledge series, we had session 1, we had about 23 attendees representing 11 Cibolo neighborhoods, 2 church neighborhoods, and then 1 from West Memphis. Don't think she drove into this. He said Bruce. She was there too. They covered a lot of material in that 4-hour session, and we have listed potential topics for the next session, so it's really positive. And then the comprehensive plan meeting, I know a lot of us were there, but the FFA did a really good job of setting that up. The stickers were very interactive. Lots of people were asking questions. The staff members from the consultant who were here were very responsive to the questions that were being asked. I spoke with both business owners and some residents who attended, and they were very impressed with what was put together. I wish more people attended, but of those who did attend, they had very positive things to say about it.
There was a car show, sorry.
Yeah, I went to the car show. All right, looks good. Anyone else?
Well, I went to the HOA training myself, seminar, I thought it was pretty good. Also attended the day at, I don't know, area council of governments, basic seminars for elected officials. It was different than, people don't know who's been here before my time. I know, and I don't know. But, a little different take on things than another one I went to, on CML, but the attorneys presented things. Pretty good.
Anyone else? Next.
Want to do the same event?
yes.
All right, discussion on items city council would like to see on future agendas. We got your executive session, Councilman Benson.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything? We can always just shoot it to Eddie or,
I had a couple of local moms reach out about the comprehensive plan and about the park swap. And they have children with disabilities, specifically in wheelchairs, and they said that our current parks and facilities are not really acceptable. Mulch is not easy for wheelchairs to use with braces or any kind of medical equipment.
Or old people like me.
And then we have the swings for kids in wheelchairs, or for kids with no less at home. It's hard to get them over to the swings when they want it, and it's difficult for families to use the park when they have accessibility needs. When we were talking about the pier or whatever we're gonna put in the pond, we talked about making that more accessible. So I just wanna kind of open that conversation and see how we can include family members and people with disabilities in those discussions to make sure that what we plan going forward is actually something that is usable and workable for them. We tried with the swings at the park. If you can't get to the swing because of the mulch, then how are we really being truly accessible and making sure that those things are recommended? But that was, I don't know if it should be on the agenda or if it's something that we discuss outside, but I just want to see how we can more of that and focus on that. And it's not just parks, it's our sidewalks and our crosswalks.
Well, to kind of add to that, I'd like to add on there, setting a policy. Because here we had somebody call me last night that they were kicking people off of our fields had a gentleman come here today saying he got kicked off of a field. If it's not, if there's nobody there, if there's nobody using it, I don't see why it cannot be used. Now, if somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to rent it for 2 hours, he's out there running for 45 minutes to an hour and nobody else, and it's in the middle of the day, what's the big deal about using that? But if it's somebody that's got a team and they're wanting to rent it to practice or to play a game, that's a whole different story.
Okay, so we'll do an agenda item called Parks Policy. How about that? We can talk about all this stuff.
Sounds good.
Does that sound good? Okay. Could you do that, please, Mrs. Simmons? Okay. Anyone else have any agenda items for our July meeting?
Well, I don't know that this needs to go on here, but I'm kind of disappointed with the City Hall walkthrough, and I will discuss that with Mr. Reed in private.
But not on the agenda item, right?
I don't need it on an agenda. I think we all know where that's going.
Anyone else have any items? Okay, if so, just email them to Peggy. This isn't the only opportunity you've got to put agenda items on. All right, discussion action on the review and confirmation of all upcoming special meetings and workshops and scheduling the time, date, and place for additional special meetings or workshops. Mrs. Simmons? No items? Okay, all right. All right, okay, so we're going to go to item number 14. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Can we get some actual input?